What's up, guys? Wyatt here from the Apex, the podcast, and I am super proud to announce a very special partnership just in time for Apex LAN with Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the most fun I've had playing daily fantasy sports, and it's super simple to use as well. All you do is you go into the Prize Picks app and you can pick from 2 to 6 players on a multitude of different sports and or esports, submit your entry, and you could have it all done in less than 60 seconds. There's so much to love about Prize Picks with quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and a multitude of different selections of players and stats that you can choose from. All that comes together and makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. We know LAN is right around the corner. There's going to be plenty of teams and players that you can choose from. But other than Apex, there's a lot of other sports that you can look at. I've been looking deep into hockey and placing a lot of entries on shots on goal, and I've been having a blast. Go to prizepicks.com/theapex and use code THEAPEX for a first deposit match of up to $100. Once again, go to prizepicks.com/theapex and use code THEAPEX for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of the Apex, the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here. Enoch had a religious holiday, so he's not here today, but he is on the back end of the show talking about him getting #1 pred, and that was a hell of a conversation. But I think the first thing we got to talk about here is Moist and DSG, really just DSG, is no longer a team. It was a crazy story, lots of layers to this one. Jumba, just kind of go over your thoughts to kick off the fact that DSG, the dojo, is no more.
Well, for anyone who might be unaware, if you are, I don't know what you're doing. Just kidding. But I'll give a quick rundown. So basically, after another poor performance last night from DSG, we get a tweet, I think first thing this morning from Designful that says, looking for someone who wants it like they breathe. Or I'm paraphrasing, not saying that the quote exactly the way it is. But so their speculation starts coming up. Sounds like someone's leaving DSG. And I thought it was bait at first because I was like, there's no way this team is falling apart. I saw a lot of people saying Timmy was going to be stepping down. Saw a lot of people saying they're dropping Enemy. I still didn't believe either one of them. But we do find out later on throughout the day that, in fact, that Timmy does step down from DSG, go over to Moist, who has MT move into a coaching role, their IGL, if you're unaware. And now Timmy is filling that slot, and Waltzy is taking over as their IGL. And then Draugr, their coach, I haven't heard anything confirmed as of recording this. I think he's going to be moving to an analyst role. I don't know what's happening with Draugr. Draugur's the coach of Moist, and he's been a pretty integral part. I think he's even in Canada with them, if I'm not mistaken. So, it'll be interesting to see if now they just got like coach, analyst, a whole full role, because he's been a big part of their team. Anyways, so now my thoughts on it. I don't know, Timmy kind of broke down what his reasonings for it. He said there was a conflict in his goals with others on the team. An example he used right after talking about that was actually his roommate, best friend, was Bronzy, their coach, and how Bronzy, because he has a full-time job, just doesn't have the time to VOD review. And he said he wants a more professional environment where it's like full 100% dedication, not putting any blame on Bronzy, just explaining that that's what he's looking for. I think that clashing ideals, even though we didn't name names, may be some of the clashing with Design, even though they've talked very positively about each other, just maybe not see the game the same way, and he wants to be aligned with someone else. And then he also did mention financially. So he mentioned his Twitch contract is ending here. He's got a mortgage to pay now, and he needs the money, and Moist is going to be giving him a salary, whereas Disguised wasn't. Something that I'm pretty sure was, at least from what I understood in the past, was his idea to give Design and Enemy a ability to get paid more with the salary. So that's, I just wanted to cover everything from his standpoint. He said it wasn't because that they've been playing bad, and I actually do somewhat agree. There's some points I know you're probably going to make, Wyatt, that we'll talk about the other side of things, but I somewhat agree because Moist isn't doing that much better. They're 25th. Disguise is 29th overall. They're separated by 6 points. Both of them are on the chopping block for LAN after 2 days. So yeah, I do agree that I don't think it was performance. The only other thing I would say about it is that I'm kind of gutted. They had a really good story there. They had a really good chemistry, something that you do not find with very many teams in Apex at all. And I would love to see them stick it out. But, Moist is a pretty good team. So I also don't blame enemy or Timmy because I don't know if it's a 100% upgrade, but it's definitely a good team that's been around for a while and he could do some damage there. So I know I talked a lot there. You go ahead now.
No, it's this one truly just does feel like a breakup, and it sounds so weird because I mean it's just an esports team, but the way that they broke onto the scene with the dojo coming out of nowhere, Design had just gotten dropped from E8. Enoch did it, and he goes over there and they start playing immediately well, like immediately. You could tell the chemistry was there, and there's not like the story coming out of it was Timmy is a streamer. He's a content creator. He's not going to be able to hack it in this world. And then Design, he's too much of a hothead. He can't make it work. Enemy had his own struggles as well. So it's like, it was basically 3 misfits come together on a whim and they just dominate. It just clicks. They just connect. And it was such a great story in the early parts. And then it got even fucking better because then they go to champs and they have an incredible performance. And they were probably like a fight away from having a great chance to win it. Things don't go their way, but they stick together. Then they turn into DSG. Things really start to change for them, but they consistently have like that role where everybody wants to watch and tune in to DSG and see how they're doing, what's going on. Design's flipping his lid, Timmy's keeping him calm, enemies making plays. It was perfect. It was great. It was awesome. And it just felt like a perfect checks and balances system with all of them. All of them keeping each other in check. And that's why it sucks to watch this end because obviously Design goes and takes the trial from TSM. I wasn't the biggest fan of the trial just because I felt like the team that he had was already so good. But then on the other side of the token, it's fucking TSM. Like, what do you expect him to do? Like, what do you expect? And then they don't play well. Things start to fall apart. And then it all comes to an end. And I think the part that really hurts the most and really makes it feel like the breakup is when you see the tweets coming out from both all 3 of Enemy, Timmy, and Design. They're all just saying the most beautiful things about one another. And I think it goes deeper than being just a video game at that point. We've talked a lot. I mean, this is a league where we talk about the professional players and the teams that are involved in the ALGS. But this, you could tell all 3 of them learned life lessons from one another. And that goes so much deeper than this game. And all of them needed a little bit of a life lesson in their own way. Like they all kind of needed that. And it sucks, man. It sucks because I had already said on the pod during split 1 that throughout the beginning of the split, Design was having his moments. And then as the season started to go along, you could feel him getting more. And like there wasn't as many of those rage moments as there was before. And you could feel that there was starting to be a change. And that emotional just outrage wasn't happening as often. And you could tell that it was teaming with these guys, having these guys around him was helping him out. And so it sucks because we were watching this transformation and also having it paired with such a great story with all of these guys. It just ends, it falls apart, and you see the tweets and it's just sad. It just makes you real sad. I think it was one of my favorite stories in the league. And now it comes to an end. And now the story goes even further because now we have to see what happens with DSG after this. We talk about it a little bit more with DiA in the interview. Shout out DiA. We have DiA coming up. Fantastic interview with DiA, an hour, I think, and 20 minutes long. Mm-hmm. And we go through this exact story, and he brings up a great point in it. And it's just that what happens with DSG when Split 2 ends, that could potentially be the real story. Whether or not they make it, obviously that's going to draw attention. But there's something deeper here, just like there has always been with this team. There's something deeper, and I just want to see how this plays out, because all of these guys deserve a good ending to this saga, and I would like to see it end positively for all three of them. But it just hurts, man. It's tough. It's a tough day.
Yeah, it was it was like really sudden, which almost makes you even wonder, like, and when you're saying, like, when you see the tweets, like, almost still like, why, like there's, it feels like there's still more that's just not entirely said and probably won't be said for a very long time. um but yeah, like, like like that's what I mean. Like, I don't know if it was because Timmy was such a big content creator, already had a big following, that there was the eyes on it, that's why the story developed. But there is just something special, something different about this team from the LCQ, like such a legendary win, mind you, to the champs, like, run. Like, there was something along the entire time that I can't think of another team that has had that story outside of maybe TSM, and that's just because TSM stuck together for so long and had so much success. Like, I love the Dark Zero boys, and they've had so much success, and maybe it's because, like I said, like, they don't have as big as the social presence. But if I heard of, like, Zero and Jen Burton splitting apart, I would have been like, "Oh, that sucks." But I don't think I would have been like as like confused and like shocked about, like, even like Dojo leaving, right? Or, like, the impact that Hal had about leaving TSM. Like, I don't know if, like, if Zero left Sykes and Jen, if there would have been that much impact. And so maybe it is because Timmy was such a big story, but there's something about this team that was
I no,
special. And like,
I think, yeah, I think you're right in a way. I think that's definitely part of it, but I think it
yeah,
goes so much deeper. Like,
yeah,
it was, I guess, to simplify it in my mind, whenever DSG won a game at LAN, you've got Design in the corner hyping himself up. You got Timmy waving at the crowd, getting them, he's just clapping and he's waving and smiling. And then you got Enemy just sitting in the corner and just not really doing anything. And I think that's what kind of summarizes the story of DSG. It's three very different people who somehow came together in the worst circumstances and made something beautiful happen. And the fact that it's
yeah,
ending and it's over sucks. It just sucks. Like, it doesn't, it just doesn't. I hate it. I hate it. And we were talking about this before too, when we found out Design was trialing with TSM, and maybe it was off pod, but a lot of the people I was talking to was just like, I understand where Design is coming from, but for my own personal selfish reasons, I don't want to see it happen. I
yeah,
probably said that 17 times just because I love the story of DSG. And so for it to end like this so suddenly, and for the way it went down, it definitely sucks. But it was nice seeing that, they are all super appreciative of one another. Because a lot of times when there's roster changes mid-season, like we saw one with Native, it was like, yeah, didn't work out, didn't like the way they played, going somewhere else. That's typically how it goes. This is how
hmm,
DSG had that impact, because the tweets were like very heartfelt. You could tell that this was a team that they love each other. They love each
yeah,
other as friends. They just couldn't make it work, unfortunately. And
yeah.
it sucks, man.
No, they built something. They built something here, right? Like, when you see a lot of these roster changes, it's oftentimes, like, honestly, it's one of my least favorite parts about esports, that it's oftentimes that it is one bad performance day and suddenly someone's out, or like a couple bad days and suddenly someone's immediately out, and it gives no time for viewers to ever build an emotional connection to the teams, because you, like, I'm sorry, and like, I don't know, I'm picking on FaZe, but like, FaZe hasn't had a consistent team not once, right? For example, like, there's something new every single time. So if you're not even looking at the org, like, I could pick other teams maybe, but like, I'm just saying, like, I can't build an emotional connection to any of these teams because of the fact that a lot of them haven't stuck together for more than a couple of weeks at some points, right? They always got a new third. But like, on the other hand, Dojo, they built something, and like you said, it's three misfits. It felt almost even like grassroots in a way, where, like, because they
It
came
did.
from CC, like, even, yeah, like, despite like Enemy and Design had already competed on lands and everything like that, they still they had to go through CC, they had to go through LCQ. They built something. They built a culture. They built a story. They were doing, and like, we want to talk about content wise too, merch wise, like, no team was doing it like them. They had the best merch booth, I think,
Best by
LAN.
far, and not even
Like,
to
right?
mention that Toast is live streaming behind the booth as
Yeah.
you're going up to buy a jersey or something.
Yeah.
Next level.
And then the documentary that Timmy put out about the champs, they put out 2 documentaries. This time Timmy put out one, Disguise put out one about Split 1 playoffs. Just all around, they were doing a lot of good things that was building a really cool team. And I mean, like, the thing is like, I hope that Design and Enemy carry that on. I hope, like we said, I hope that we do see them stick together, that they fight through and they come out on top, because if they pick up a third and then go do good at LAN and even possibly win that one fight, I said this in the interview with DiA, instead of us talking about this as being like their story ended, I think it will be the greatest story in, like, one of the greatest stories in Apex, like, for hands down. Because that's a lot of battles, especially Design himself has had to go through. But yeah, so like, I'd love to see them stick through it. I'd love to see them continue the content side of things, because it would just, at the very least, having Timmy on their squad has set them up for amazing careers in the esports world. It's such a fickle place. And then on the flip side, I hope that now that Timmy's on Moist, I hope that Moist starts doing the same stuff. Like, Moist is another content creator org run by Moist Critical. And he does a lot of like the watch parties, and he's hosted live events for people to go out to do a whole LAN watch party at a venue before in Florida, right? Because he doesn't like flying, so he won't go to the LANs. But like, they haven't done anything in the realm of like a lot of YouTube content where they're not making documentaries. They're not building the story of their team and everything like that. And which is crazy. They got like, Walty, Empty have like a crazy story, and then you got Guild there, bro. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, so I hope he does that and brings everyone up with it.
That's the other sad thing about this is DSG was doing it the way I think every org should do it.
Should be 100%.
And now that Timmy's gone, we'll see if that continues. I hope it does, because everybody should take a page out of every org should take a page out of DSG's book. That's how you should be doing content, because if you're relying solely on LAN winnings to pay your bills, it's just not smart. And the way DSG does it with like great merch, dude, their merch sold so well. Great merch, good content, great team. Put that all 3 together, you got the trifecta. Let's get into the actual on paper, like the performances here. Both teams played like absolute shit. Let's just be real. They played like absolute shit. Moist did play worse on this match day. 0 points. It's going to be a tough battle back. A lot of times when you see a player move from a struggling team to another team, that other team is usually pretty decent or in a decent spot to move forward. Timmy moved from a team that sucked on the standings to another team that sucks on the standings. And so it's like, you're just like, all right, well, we got to make it work. And then I guess we should first start with Moist. Let's start with Moist first. This is an interesting situation because Moist has a player who is now moving to coach, who was their IGL. Waltzy is moving over to IGL. And then you have a brand new player mixed into the fold. All 3 of those things together is going to be really hard to figure out in the span of just a couple weeks. How do you see this one playing out?
You know what? Like, I don't want to just try to be the guy that's like always positive. Oh, it's going to be amazing. Like, I think they'll pull through. But I saw Moist as the best team behind Dark Zero last split. I would like, if you asked me to bet on a team to be the team to take them down, I was putting Moist up there to take down TSM and Dark Zero for winning LAN. And they almost did 4th overall. Like, great performance. They did really good. Waltzy, I think, does have what it takes to IGL. Like, he's been co-IGLing for a while, but I believe he should have experience. If I'm trying to think back to, his days in Apex South before even teaming with MT, and I believe he was IGLing. And if not, he's been co-IGLing his entire career at this point. So, yeah, like, I want to say, like, I don't want to just be like the guy that's always like, oh no, they'll figure it out. But I do see this team being able to figure it out. I think Timmy's kind of like unorthodox. I was saying this in the DiA interview, where it's like, it's a weird fit on the outside if you're looking on paper, but I think that actually might help them, because right now they're struggling with macro. They're struggling with just a lot of the things going on with like between POI draft, the meta being very flexible, and like a lot of different different characters in the mix, and I think that Timmy's mind might actually be able to help them break through a couple things, and then I think that Waltzy will be able to reel them in. You know, you got MT as a coach who's going to be able to help with that macro from a outside perspective now. And then Guild's Guild, bro. I don't know if people are talking about it enough these days. Like Guild is still a top 5, maybe even top 3 roller player out there. So I think they can pull it together. LAN is definitely going to be difficult no matter what, because 10 points after 2 days is just difficult. It's not impossible. One win on a day and they're back in the mix. And I wouldn't put that like out of the question for Moist, right? Like they were the second best team in North America last split. I think they could bounce back. Yeah.
Then we move over into DSG. Right now they've been trialing with Zenile. I think they also trialed with Tech. And the interesting thing about the way that they are trialing is design is going based off of who plays the best with Enemy. And Enemy basically gets the final say on who he wants to have fill this third role, which I think is an interesting position to be in, because a lot of times it's the IGL who ends up choosing whoever. So it's weird. It's design wants comfortability for Enemy. Right now, Zenile seems to be the pick, but it's not confirmed yet. How do you feel, and do you think DSG can find a way to make it back?
Yeah, so with that, I think the big thing is because he saw Timmy and Enemy as like a dynamic duo, like a really good working duo. And especially as an IGL, you'll see a lot of teams, they do work in duos almost, right? Typically, it's your IGL and your quote unquote fragger will work as a duo, and then your anchor is off to the side. But even I want to reference TSM right now. The way that they're playing is so a Zap. Either Reps will play with Zap or and Verhulst will anchor. We'll get into talking about this a little bit more when we talk about TSM. Or they'll swap off, and Verhulst will be moving with Zap as a duo, and Reps will anchor. So I think the reason he wants someone to be able to duo with Enemy is because he, like you said, he wants to be really comfortable there to be able to work as a strong duo while Design does his thing, especially while he's playing on the Wraith. He kind of do his own thing sometimes. But I think it just gives Enemy, who's already an amazing flex controller player and can kind of do many different roles, one of the best out there. I think he wants that comfortability because he knows himself as an IGL, he can also work around his team so long as like his 2 players can perform at their best, right? And he'll just fill in the gaps where needed. With their performance, can they bounce back? I don't want to dog on it because I know it's kind of like the common thing to go to, but the Wraith hasn't looked good in their first 2 days. I think that they're definitely having some comp identity issues here. Even with Timmy, I remember they were trying Pathfinder at one point, and that kind of got botched in like really quick. They didn't want to do it in scrims anymore. They were struggling where they didn't have someone who would be like a bang main. So maybe, you know, they bring someone in who could really fit that bang role. Maybe that helps them get off Wraith. Yeah, so I think their biggest thing is comp. And that's another tough part is like there's trying to solve comp right now alongside getting a new player in there. And that's where it becomes tough when you're a team at the bottom of the standings and going through a roster change like this, because like you're now trying to figure out your macro, your comp, and all doing this with a new player. Maybe this will give them the fresh start that they need to really bounce back. But I don't know. It's kind of questionable. They have 2 points. It's going to be very difficult. I'm never going to say never to anything because we've seen crazier shit before. But yeah, like it's going to be really tough. I think that they'll probably be able to get themselves in form, maybe get to regional finals, see what happens there. And by champs, they'll be solid at the very least. What I'm curious to see is like right now they have a roster lock that they're going to have to jump on quick, and they're going to have to pick someone up. And this isn't because I don't want anyone like, you know, like catching a bag from an org, right? Like I want everyone to succeed in this esport and live out their dreams. But I think it would be in their best interest to not pick up a player and immediately sign them to a contract. Instead, like keep trialing players throughout the week. Almost if you think what Dark Zero did with Rambo. And I know a lot of people said
that was a wild situation.
Yeah,
but it ended up working out though.
right? And like I want to like be clear. A lot of people don't know this. A lot of people think that Zero as the IGL slighted like Rambo by dropping him like without him knowing. It wasn't actually on Zero. There was heavy miscommunication from the org that Zero was not aware that Rambo had like a contract. He was under the impression, or like that he had a contract like sent to him. He was under the impression that he still had like free reign to pick someone else up before regional final if he needed to, or pick someone up before LAN if he needed to. And like from my perspective, I actually agree with Zero's like wanting to do that, because why should he not try to field the best roster possible? And you can't do that with trying to decide within 1 week, right? So I don't, if I was them, I wouldn't be sending a contract out right away. I'd play with someone, get through your pro league days. But like if you have to keep trialing and find someone else and take the split to do that, pick the best player, pick your best option, give your best chance of winning. I wouldn't just jump on someone after you've played with them 3 days and then suddenly sign them a contract. And now it gets to be a sticky situation if you don't like them anymore and you got to drop them, or suddenly now you see design leave, you see enemy leave. Like I think that could get into a real sticky situation if you just jump on someone too quick that you're not confident with.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think that's what a lot of teams do too quickly nowadays, is they just rush to get the spot filled, and then you get a little bit further down the road and realize it's just not working out the way you had hoped or wanted it to. But right now it seems to be Zenile. We'll see how that goes. Final question on DSG and Moist. You have to pick one who has the better chance of making LAN for split 2. Which one do you lean more towards? Because both of these are weird situations. You know what? I'll give you a third option. Neither of them make it, or both of them make it. Because I'm leaning towards neither.
You're leaning towards neither of them making it.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make sure I have my points right with like the standings. So like DSG has 4, Moist has 10. Yeah, like they're very low points. I mean, like if we were like to not think about points, actually, if I was thinking about like, how many points I have now, and if I was also thinking about just like team wise, like what it's looking like, I think Moist still has a really good chance at LAN. I will be fully transparent. I haven't seen too much of DSG playing with Zenile yet. I just don't know. And I just don't know if that's a team in my eyes right now, if I fully believe in it. And like someone can feel free to clip this and like slap me in the face with it when they somehow finish like
it'll be designed when they make it.
Like that's fine. Like do it. Like I welcome that shit. But like just right now, I don't know if that's a team like I fully trust in, and that's just because I haven't seen enough of them play together. I need to see more between Zenile and them. Like,
and it's also
Zenile
just
also
because,
hasn't been. Or sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's also just because there's such a limited time frame on how many days you have, and to use up 2 already and have that little of points, it's very hard to come back from, especially with the way some of these other teams are playing right now. And we'll get to the rest of the board here in a moment when we go through the results of match day 3. It's just hard though. There's so many teams playing well. So
yeah, my thing was like, like with Zenile, like looking at it here, his best LAN performance. Actually, no. Zenile's actually had some pretty good LAN performances. So I will retract those statements I was about to say. Zenile's actually got some good experience.
He has a 5th, he has a 6th, and I think he has a 16th.
It's that's 2021, so that's online, but he's got 6th and 16th. So at the very least, he almost finished. Like he got 6th with Space Station. Like that's really good. Like 16th, like he at the very least made finals lobby. I know he missed when he was with Sen. Like they missed a finals, I'm pretty sure. Let me see. Champion, yeah, like see, they missed a finals when he was Sen, like 27th, and they didn't even qualify for split 2. So like that's where like it concerns me. Those are the most recent ones. His best performance was 2 years ago at this point. So yeah, it just makes it like that's where some of my confidence is in there, where like he hasn't performed at a LAN recently, and like joining a team like it's where like I just sometimes like might not put all my faith in them, as opposed to Timmy, who's off 8th place, but 8th to like 3rd was like a 5-point difference. And like everyone said it several times, 1 point away off of top 5 finish. And yeah, I just I think he's got like even almost like that, maybe that confidence factor I see. Zaniah's kind of like passive, whereas like I just feel like Timmy's like got that it. And like I'm speaking in sort of like almost intangibles right now, but just something about that is making me think that I'm more confident in Moist. Moist is also just an unreal team. Like I said, they were in my eyes second in the world last split, like before LAN. They were second in the world, not just NA. And I can see them easily bouncing back just by fitting in a Timmy. I don't think Timmy's a huge downgrade from MT.
Yeah, if I had to lean one way, if I had gun to my head and I had to lean one way, I'd obviously lean Moist, strictly because they have more points. I'm not sure if it's going to work like they think it is, and that's no disrespect to them. It's just a lot is changing in a very short amount of time, and DSG just has less points. So I would lean Moist.
6 less points, that is.
Yeah,
But like 6 points is a big deal.
It's a
like,
big
you gotta
deal.
Think, like
wasn't Meat Lovers? Meat Lovers almost made one of the lands, and they missed it by like what, 1 point?
1 point, several times. Yeah, like Meat Lovers missed it by 1 point. I forget. Man,
it happens every split that a team misses by a couple points. You know,
teams have lost on tiebreakers, right? So like every point literally matters, and
everything
especially when
matters.
you're sitting in the bottom of the leaderboard, when you're sitting between 10th or like you're sitting between 25th to 29th. Yeah. Those 6 points really do matter.
Yes.
It's like chopping block type stuff right now, and we're on day 2.
We're on it. We're on it already. Very early into the season. But okay, let's quickly run through and talk about the results of match day 3. Obviously, our winner, TSM. We'll get to them in just a moment. TSM was our winner. They were first on the day with 76 points. Right behind them was Fuira and Complexity, second and third. Fourth place was Luminosity. Fifth was Skidmark. Some notable teams around the rest of the scoreboard. Flat sitting at 9th. Cloud9 at 10th. Team Liquid at 11th. You had Native at 13th. And then you had Stallion 17th. DSG 18th. And Moist at the very bottom at 20th. The biggest story has to be TSM. That entire week leading up to this match day was full of drama left and right. Verhulst is saying things on stream. Hal is saying things on stream. They're going back and forth. Everybody thought they were in the same house. They were not. I thought they were in the same house. I was like, why don't they just walk over and talk to each other? Realized they were not in the same house. It was just a lot of drama. Evan basically saying that, it wasn't fun to play with Hal, and Hal saying that I'm a winner and that's what I do. And if I'm going to be an asshole, I'm going to be an asshole. I win and I have the results to back it up. So you could kind of fall on either side of the fence on that. I think both sides have some understanding to it. I saw people saying too that Raven, he was saying Raven fell off, but he also said that he fell off. So I didn't really take that one as seriously. But then to have all of that happen, I was in Evan's chat. I was watching the chat. There was a lot of negativity. And then to go and just win the next match day, first game win, third game win, and just pop off the way he was popping off, it had to be one of the best feelings of all time. I'm just going to be honest. It had to be one of the best feelings of all time. And that's not even the biggest storyline. The biggest storyline from this is that Zap was the IGL. So Jumba, your thoughts on TSM on Sunday?
It's actually funny. I forgot about all that drama because of this Moist and DSG stuff. That got me on a chokehold the last 2 days, and so
Apex is crazy.
I forgot it. It's been wild, bro.
Yeah.
Like you go to bed and everyone's changing teams, drama everywhere. Now I understand why when you said at the beginning of our call, like before we started recording, you're like, man, Apex drama lately. I forgot about the Verhulst Hal stuff. Like I forgot about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, wow. Well, I will say, as amazing it is, it's got to be a good feeling. What matters now is when he's back in the same lobby as Falcons. That's where it really matters. Like it's great to win, but do it when they're in the lobby. I'd like to see how that goes down. If they take them down on a day, might silence people, because I'm not gonna lie, I love Evan and everything like that, but maybe it's because of my sports history. I kind of am someone that leans to the side of like, I like having a person like Hal on my team. It motivates you to work your ass off. And sometimes I had a coach who was like really, really aggressive and yell like that, swear at you, everything, and like scream off your top of your head. It definitely caused moments where I would even get nervous sometimes and I'd fuck up. But there wasn't a time in my hockey career, like I played like my entire life. There wasn't a time that I didn't push myself as hard as I did when I played for that guy, because I wanted to make sure I was the best of my game, because that dude had the most passion. And Albert Laley had a really good quote that he said about that whole situation. Is like, you don't like it when you're in it. You don't like it when you're in it sometimes, but as soon as you don't have someone like Hal putting in that level of passion, yelling at you, showing how much he fucking cares, you start to miss it. Because like when you start playing with other people who don't put in that level of effort, you're like at a point where you're like, just fucking yell at me so I know that you actually care about this game and that you want to win really bad right now.
So, I mean, how many
times
times do you see players around the league everybody just says like, oh, this person doesn't care, this person didn't VOD review, this person wasn't locked in, this person barely played the game outside of the match days. You knew the one thing you were getting with Hal, no matter what. He might call you a fucking dumbass, but you know for a fact that he was playing all the time, making sure he was on his P's and Q's when it came to having like his like game skill ready to go. He's looking at VODs like he is always playing. You never had to worry about that. In a world without that, it is a little bit weird because you can run into those people who just are not locked.
Yeah. And I will say, I see the opposite side of things, especially like if they're playing ranked and like it's still that level of intensity. Like sometimes it could be too much. Sometimes like it's probably not the most fun thing to get yelled at all day long. So I do see the other side of the coin. I think the issues become a little bit more glaring when you start losing. Like they didn't have the greatest split one, 17th at split one playoffs. When you lose, it starts to feel a lot worse because no one heard anything about this when they went first, second, first, and then first in split one pro league. Last year they went split one pro league first playoffs, second next playoffs, win champs. You're not hearing anyone complain about Hal's yelling when they're winning everything because they're winning. It becomes a lot more glaring when you start losing. I'm not trying to like, say I don't respect Evan's feelings. Like, there's obviously some validity if you do want to quit the game, that something's not working, and like that has to be addressed and communicated and everything like that, so this way you get back to where you want to be. But like I said, like I if people are going to give Hal continued flack at this point for the way that he yells, I think that in my eyes, I will want that. I will want that on my team because it shows. But let's get into the numbers because I know I wasn't even supposed to go on that whole tangent, but then I told you I forgot about it. Let's go into the numbers. So yeah, and not the numbers, even what happened on their day. So like yeah, they dropped first, then fourth, then first, then second, then 20th, and then third.
Out of nowhere.
Like the 20th was the 20th was a crazy outlier. But going from like an 11th place finish, I think in first week to first overall was pretty sick. And like you mentioned, Zap on IGL. So that was something that I still wasn't expecting, but I think it's been good so far. Zap, it's only his second split of Pro League. And he played, as I mentioned on the pod last week, he played his first split with Zachmeser, someone who very much micros. Like he always fed information. He had great comms. It was one of Zap's biggest assets. If you go back and look at like last split, but Zach micros really hard. So as a it wasn't really like a co-IGL situation. So to see him come in and then start IGLing like Reps and Verhulst, but then actually do a very good job with it, it's very, very impressive. I love to see that considering it's only his second split. The other thing, and what I want to mention is like I like his assertiveness is what an IGL needs, right?
Yeah,
his assertiveness is very good. It was in my notes where like if Evan was going to be the IGL, he has too much of maybe we should do this, guys, or what do you think about this, guys? It's not like guys, let's do this. And this week that was necessary because he was feeding information to Zap. Reps was feeding information to Zap, so it's not like he needed to like be the assertive one in those moments if Zap was the final call, final say. But like that is what I think they struggled with on week one, and they made a switch and it worked. And if Reps and Evan are cool with like having him be the IGL and they keep doing what they do best, then it works. It works. The only thing I want to see now is the biggest thing that separates a great IGL from the best IGLs, or I should even say like a good IGL from like the best IGLs, the zero, the Hal, is that when you come up to that fork in the road in like the highest pressure moments and you need to decide, do you go left or do you go right? And making that right decision is the hardest thing. And so that's where maybe his lack of experience might come into play. We won't know until later on and we see more things go on. They've only played 2 days. But like I hope if he can solve that, and maybe he's like some savant, it'd be pretty fucking cool. So
Yeah. Yeah, going back to your assertiveness take
Mhm.
on Zap, that was the one thing I noticed. I wanted to really hone in and figure out what exactly he was doing differently that Evan and Reps were not doing in the first week. So I listened to it without having any visual at all. I just went strictly audio, put my phone in my pocket, and was just walking around listening to how he was calling. And that's really what separated him from the other two in week one, was that he was actually just assertive. You talked about it with Verhulst. I think the phrase you hear the most is, "What do you think about this?" Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, except when you're an IGL. You kind of need to have like, no, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And they still threw in ideas and chimed in, just like Reps has always done. And Verhulst has been like that recently as well, too. They've always done that. Like they throw in their ideas and different stuff like that. But when it came down to the play that was being made, he made the call and he's kind of an asshole about it, which you need to have. You need like you cannot go into comms listening and being like, oh, this sounds like a ragtag group of guys. They sound like cool. And no, you need to have somebody who's kind of an asshole.
Oh, of course.
You need to have that, I think. Anyway, maybe not, but that's what
Well,
I
it goes
think.
back to the Imperial Hal thing, like what I was saying. But like, let's put aside the Imperial Hal yelling at like his players. If you listen to Imperial Hal, if you listen to Zero, if you listen to Zach Mazer, if you listen to Designful, like who's another IGL that I could think
Phony?
of off the top of my head? Phony, even like you listen to those guys and like with like no prior knowledge of who they are, and you'd be like, oh, these dudes are the biggest fucking dicks in the world. But it's not that they're doing that. It's just they need to make the decision and they need to get that across.
They have a very small amount of time to do something really big that could change the entire course of a match day, a fucking tournament, a final Sunday. Like they have, and so it's like when you hear them kind of the way the comms sound for an IGL is almost annoyance at all times, and Zap has it. Like if there was an intangible for what I would need in an IGL, it would just be like that annoyance that you can hear in the voice as they're telling you stuff like, no, we're not. Like he's got it. And that's what they needed in week one, and they didn't have it. The other thing I do want to point out, though, is from trying to listen to Zap, what I also heard a lot of was Evan mid-fight making a lot of calls as well. Dude, his in-fight calls were insane. Very good, very concise, very clean. He's on the Bangalore. He wasn't on Catalyst. He was on the Bangalore, which made a gigantic difference because when he was on World's Edge, he was rushing into everything with the smokes. He's hitting he's fucking Evan Verhulst. Of course he's going to hit everything. He wasn't just sitting back anchoring. He was going into every fight, and it was almost like a passing of the guard when a fight would start between Zap and Evan. Now, Zap's still trying to make calls, trying to tell them where to go and do all that, but Evan was going in there and he knew exactly what he wanted to do and how to execute it, and he had a ton of clips from this day. There was one on Storm Point where they're sitting, what was it, outside of Cascade Falls, and he's sitting behind like a little box. Two guys come over the top of the box. He fries them both and kills them and gets them the extra kills at the end. I think it was how many?
He had 2 kills going into like they were a duo. I think Reps went down.
Reps went down early.
Zap and Verhulst. He had like 2 kills, and there was probably around 10 teams left, and they got themselves to top 3. And Verhulst picked up 5 kills. Yeah, Verhulst picked up 5 kills, just dicing people up with the Havoc, through smokes too. So fuck anyone saying game assist was it. Like he was just frying guys because he was on bank.
Yeah,
right?
And that's where the thing really, that's where my idea of TSM really starts to shift into. We've talked about Falcons and SSG being the S tier team. I didn't really view a whole lot of teams as being A tier. I would put TSM in A, and then, potentially Furia flirting with that line. I got to see a little bit more from Complexity, but their in-fight comms with Evan there, awesome. Their IGL style with Zap, awesome. And we can't take anything away from Reps' ability to play the fuse.
I want to go to that. I want to talk about that.
Dude,
they were so like that's what I really want to go to. So like a lot of people have been talking about this recently since Raven talked about it, that he said that both Evan and Reps play very both both of them are very much anchor players, right? And like you had Hal all the time, who was able, especially on the horizon, was able to get in entry fights. And as the IGL was still doing the most damage and picking up a lot of kills. And Evan was playing the Catalyst. You had reps on the Bangalore, but like because he was the M&K player, and Evan would pick up a lot of kills too, being the controller player. But the two of them would very much still anchor. Like it always felt like that. Whereas like what they did by switching to Fuse, which was super interesting, is that so Fuse could anchor, because his abilities with his knuckle clusters can zone, and the grenades can keep teams at a distance, right? So it was really good for anchoring. But being a little bit more regressive player or character still allowed reps to move around freely and get some information for Zap. And then the alts were really good for when both Zap and Verhulst would move in to fight. And the really cool thing that if you listen to their comms that they're talking about mid game and everything like that, is that there was times the way that they're doing it is where the Zap's going to be going in every single fight because he's playing the Bloodhound, right? But for certain fights, it's best for him to be fighting with Verhulst. For other fights, they're saying, hey man, in this situation, we would have picked up way more KP if you went in with reps and allowed Verhulst to anchor. And like they were playing almost like an anchor with a Bangalore too, because it's got the movement, it's got the smokes for the rotations. She's able to like see a lot going on too. So instead of just having Cat, who should be like your anchor player because such a defensive legend, there's so much that you could do with this versatility of both Fuse and Bangalore, almost being able to swap in like those anchor positions with two players who are comfortable in that role, but can also like frag out. That was what was really cool because they won one game and they were still like, hey, next time in that situation, let's try and get reps in there. We pick up way more KP because the Fuse with the grenades would have just wiped those squads. And Zap says something along the lines of like, I
He was
agree.
trying to go for the win. Yeah.
He's like, in this situation, I really wanted to play it safe, but I love that. That I thought was really cool. Like it's a new dynamic. And just putting Evan on a character like Bangalore now, where you can unlock that dude and let him play a little bit more free. Like we saw what happened, like you mentioned, that Cascades game, that guy's going to pop off.
It was insane to watch. Like, and not even just that Cascades game. There was a game, they're coming out of the train tunnel next to survey camp, and the ults come out from reps, and Evan just goes insane. He activates, he's getting kills left and right. They end up winning that game. And dude, it was just awesome to watch. And we said last week, how is TSM going to respond? And they responded in the best possible way by winning a match day and not only doing it, but doing it convincingly. And that's how they
might
did
get
it.
Fuse nerfed because like I'm not sure if you saw the evac play. Did you see the evac play?
Yeah.
Like they're using Fuse as like a pseudo seer. A pseudo so like for anyone who doesn't know, like there people are calling this an exploit. Shuby was ripped, Max. Shuby's the one that died from this, right? Like it was Skid. And like they
Rambo
pop an
was tweeting
evac
about it
tower.
earlier.
Yeah, they pop an evac tower and then Reps backs up and shoots the evac tower over a mountain, mind you, with his ult. And so by hitting the evac tower, it makes the fire spread out like almost like in a massive area, bigger than a seer ult, which then allows them to have full walls vision. They didn't care about the flames and getting the damage, just full wall vision. And Verhulst just shreds guys through smokes after that. At that point, as Skidmark's trying to rotate in, they can't do anything. And like it's like a pseudo serial, and like it's crazy. Like I don't even know how you would nerf that. Like not allow it to be able to target onto evac towers. I guess like
no, it's crazy. But TSM, they bounced back in a big way. Team that got second place also had a very big day, and that was Furia. And I got to sit down and watch a lot of Furia. Madness, awesome. Madness was playing awesome. He had great calls consistently throughout the day. They were just in and out of it. It seemed like every single fight they were getting into, they were winning. And when you're in that kind of zone and the person who's fragging out for you is M&K in the NA region, that's a good look. That's a very, very good look. And they were running the lifeline. I went into Keon's stream earlier today. Dude was fully showing how he would play the lifeline. He was like, he got up from his chair, got down on the floor, pretended he had a sniper. He's like, I got my shock sticks in my back pocket. I've got my charge sentinel in my hand. All I have to do is hit an 88 after 88 after 88, and I just let Vax and Madness go. And that's basically what was happening. the entire time. Like, they were just consistently getting in fights. I think there was only like one game where they didn't have KP. And like, listen to this KP: 4, 12, 7, 11, 4. And then the 1-0. Like, they were just all over the place with KP, and Madness was the one leading the charge. Furia looked really good. They had a awesome play on Storm Point where they're next to Jurassic Park. They realize that there's 3 teams left. They realize they're in the middle of the sandwich here. They need to be the bread, as Jayhawk would say. They need to get out of being in the middle. They do a perfect evac play, get over the fence, land on a bunch of loot boxes, and then Madness, once again, realizing that the odds of them winning aren't very high, just goes for it. Let's just go to this team right now, kill them all, get the KP, and that's exactly what they did. And Keon still almost ended up winning the game for them. I think he had just like a 1v1 left. I mean, the way Furia is fighting right now is incredible. They're playing really well, and this is why I said that they might be another one of those A-tier teams for me, because Furia was already playing well last split, but they had his Watson decide to retire again. They bring back Vax relatively late in the season. It takes a while to build that rapport back up with somebody you were playing with a while back, especially when you had a different player in there before. I think they're getting back to that zone. They're playing good, and they're getting a ton of kills. And kills in Apex Legends is kind of synonymous with what Furia has always been. They just like to kill people, and that's what they've been doing. And Furia getting second place with some bodies, that was the play from our Panther.
Yeah, from our Lion. Yeah, 17 kills on Madness. Unreal, like you said. I think Madness's mechanics have been slept on for quite a while. I was telling you this out of call that back in the day, like, and even now, I think SMG, MNK, there's not many people that can kind of rival how good his mechanics are. And I know that SMGs aren't even the meta now, but he was still absolutely crushing it yesterday, or this past weekend. On top of that, like you said, like his calls, like you mentioned, that one play to get over the wall of the fence in Jurassic. There was also an amazing call he made for rotation, where they had a fight just outside of Siphon, just outside like Siphon launch site, like in between there, in the water, almost outside like the tree area. And funny enough, that fight gets clutched out because of the lifeline, because I can't remember who goes down, but I think it was Madness, gets tapped by the lifeline, gets him back up. They win the 3v3, and he's able to instantly reset, drop the evac tower, and they fly in right in between Siphon and a launch site. I think I was watching Jayhawk stream at the time, and Jayhawk says this is the TSM winners bracket spot. And if you guys don't know, you guys can go dive into this. The same thing I thought immediately when I saw where we went to go land. It's TSM in game 8 of winners bracket of the championship last year. They've got into this position, and it's like a strong position where it's just under that lip coming outside of launch site. It's like on a cliff side, but there's a spot you can hold where it's weird. Not a lot of teams focus you there, and they did. They played that, and they walked themselves into a win. It was a great rotation, a great play from Lifeline. Madness's calls were on. The biggest thing I want to see from Fury is consistency. I know you're putting them like A tier and everything like that. I think his experience with Vaxon, from being so like in depth, I don't think they should need that much time to get back in form. Before I would ever put them up into an A tier team, is I just want to see that consistency, because even
That's
last
fair.
split, they played really, really good last split, and then they dropped like a 0 points.
I think they had a 20th place. Yeah.
Yeah, they did. Like, I know that they were, what's it called? I know, like, again, like, it was like there was stuff probably going on with Watson wanting to not play, but they were doing really good. They were like top 4, I think top 5, and then dropped a 0 point day, which almost cost them land. I think they finished.
It was very close.
Yeah, the second last spot or something like that for land. Yeah, 10th overall when they were top 5. So yeah, like, I just want to see consistency out of them, because then they didn't end up making finals again. They swapped to Vax, and they didn't make finals, where I don't know. I expect them to be. I thought they were a team that could have got to finals. I would have expected to see them.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, so I want to see consistency now.
7th and 2nd so far in the beginning part of the season. I think that's pretty damn good so far. But once again, there's a lot of games left, and there's a lot of time left. Some other notable storylines throughout this week. Sweet Dreams is fucking crazy.
Bro, like,
the fact
some say the greatest rat of all time. And I mean, I was watching the TSM stream, and they were putting that in the chat.
So I saw that he ratted to second place. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, yeah, like you ratted to second place. I didn't know he got 4 fucking kills.
Yeah,
4 kills
19th.
as a
Remember,
solo?
he was a rat at 19th. So it was from 19th to second and picked up 4 kills all solo.
It's actually insane. It was so funny watching his stream and like watching his point of view, because the second Sykes and Funk go down and they're completely dead,
He
they
starts
were
fucking.
deathly silent. There was
Yeah.
not a thing being said. It was
Yeah.
almost like it was so quiet you could hear Sweet's thoughts. Like he wasn't talking out loud. You could just hear him talking to himself in his head. Like his brain's thoughts were going through his headphones and we could slightly hear it. That's how crazy it was. That's how silent it was. It was crazy. And he just
I was watching on the ALGS VODs and I thought the Discord thing just broke there.
yeah,
Like, what are they listening to?
Yeah,
I thought it broke.
it was insane. And then I remember sitting here. I think you were in my watch party on the Apex the podcast. Follow us on Twitch. I sat there and I said, "Yeah, he's dead there." And then the game ends. I never went back to look at it. And then I realized he was second. I was like, "How the fuck did he not die there?" He was sitting
Dude.
on the train tracks out in the open.
Right?
I was like, "How is he not dead?"
There was so many points where like he was just. It's not like he was able to like walk in from the edge zone with like or like find a little rat spot that was in the end zone and he just stayed there the whole time. This dude traversed the entire map, going from spot to spot, like literally hitting clutch replicator bat pops. Like he quite literally
Bro.
he's running away, getting shot in the back by TSM, and then hits a tap strafe, drops a smoke, grabs a bat off the replicator, and then starts running back to another spot. It was crazy, grabbing armor swaps, and then he picks up 4 kills in like the last 5 squads, mind you. He got lucky with some guys being one shot, but still, like, you know,
Dude,
like that comes from
4
just being
kills
clutch.
as a solo.
Yeah.
In the great
13-point game.
in a lobby as good as that lobby, I don't care how low they were. Like that just shows his game sense is on a different level. And it just made me think, like, if there was 3 Sweets all in the same team, it would be just a constant sweep every single LAN because of the way that he plays. Like it's absolutely insane. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, like if we like 13 points, like that would have been a 0-point game. Instead, he gets 9 for the second, 4 for the kills. So like 13 points are all. Looking at this, funny enough, they actually still do finish 4th overall. Like
that's crazy.
they still want to finish 4th overall, even getting a 0 that game. But at least they were feeling comfortable going into their last games now. Where like they picked up a second, another 13 points. Like who knows how that changes if you start the day off on like a 0-point day as opposed to like getting fired up. That Sweet just saved your asses and got you 13 to start the day, right? So
yeah,
and you know what? Like I know we're hopping to a couple other topics here. Let's go right into it. But this was a really top heavy, like TSM 76 points, Furia 69 points, Complexity 68 points. That's unreal. You don't see 3 teams almost like break 70 points.
Yeah, it was very, like you said, top heavy from this region. And I think from these 2 groups. And I think that leads into the next conversation, which is the C group. Me and Enoch, before you were on the show, talked about it might be the weakest one. I think for sure it is 100% the weakest one. No disrespect to the teams at the top, because I think Furia and Complexity are both in there. But the rest of it, like this lobby didn't feel the same as an A versus B lobby.
Yeah, that A group is so like the A group is Falcons, Space Station Gaming, Elevate, Oxygen, NRG, Yup, Most Hated, CCE, Weave, and Tripods. And so when I look at that, like let's forget about what's happened this season so far, right? If E8 is and not even think of the old E8 roster. If E8 is the roster they have now, Luxford, Slayer, Zach, and you're going into this looking at that squad. Like, because that's the reason I'm saying that is because like of the top 5 teams, you got Falcons, Space Station, E8, Oxygen, Energy. E8 was not a bad team. Like even though like they haven't been doing well, those are 3 really good players that have a lot of pro league experience. So to look at that as like right now the weakest link out of Team Falcons, Space Station Gaming, Elevate, Oxygen, Energy is wild. Because those are 5 ridiculous teams. And the top half of every other group, from my perspective, is Moist, LG, TSM, Skidmark, and Complexity in Group B. And then Furia, Liquid, C9, DSG are the 4 teams I'd say are the top of Group C. And right now, like with Moist not doing good in Group B, with DSG not doing good in Group C, those 2 lobbies are not great. where in that, like you said, that C lobby is really a weak one. Not
And
to
even
mention that
Cloud9 is struggling too.
yeah, like Cloud9's kind of like mid pack, Liquid's kind of mid pack. So like the C lobby is just not even performing all around. Only Furia is right now, and even from like the teams that are like that came through qualifiers, like CCE, most hated. Like they were probably previously under 9 Lives, but Tripods, like those are really good teams. I don't know how this A group got made. That's a ridiculous group. So yeah, my thing is like I want to see like how some of these teams, as we mentioned, like TSM, how they now after they got some more work underneath them, how they perform when they're back with an A lobby again. Because that lobby, like the BvC seemed really weak this week in comparison, and that's not to discredit the teams that won. I thought they played very good. You know what? Hey, secure your fucking points those days if that's the case. But I'd like to see how they're going to perform with that A group back in there, especially just if not for anyone else, Space Station Falcons alone is making that group significantly harder to compete in. Like you're always seeming to play for outside top 5 when those guys are there.
Yeah. So it was definitely a different feel of the lobby. Having Group A not be in any lobby makes it feel a little different, but I think BvC was definitely tougher. It was definitely tougher.
It's not like it can't bounce back though.
No,
like, all that has to happen is Moist needs to start like getting
and
back
DSG.
into form. DSG, but also Liquid. Like Liquid is right now sitting in. Where's Liquid here? Real quick.
Cloud9 should also be doing a little bit better.
Yeah, I guess Liquid's 9th overall, but they didn't play great in that lobby. They finished. They finished 11th overall, and like Cloud9 was 10th. Right, those are two teams that could be like really tearing it up, and I'd like to see more come out from them right now.
So that just about does it for day number 3 in NA. Some quick little news things before we move on and throw it on down to our interview with DiA. Great interview with DiA. Native looks like they're going to be playing with Snipe potentially.
Snipe down. Wow. We just had this guy on. He's talking about all these like, entrepreneurial things. He's going to help some teams get signed to FaZe. He's like, he's got a lot going on. And he's like, I'm not going to jump back in unless I get a good offer, and then gets Native.
And then he gets Native. And so McLovin, he's stepping away from Native, and I think he's looking for another opportunity. So Snipe Down seems to be the one. And the way he tweeted about it was interesting because it made it sound like he was very, very interested in playing with Rambo and Arcan. So we'll see how that goes. Might just end up being a trial for now. But Snipe Down will be playing with Native coming up here in a little bit. And then the last one here was EEC. I believe Carter is moving over to Weave. So EEC is now looking for their third. Also, I should mention that the Edgers are signed by the Fluffy Aimers now, and that Fluffy is a Aimers. Top 5 logo. It is literally a fluffy little ball holding a gun. So top 5 logo, Fluffy Aimers, no longer the Edgers. They are the Fluffy Aimers. So they go from one funny name to another funny name. So there we go. That's really all the news surrounding Pro League in NA right now. You got anything else?
Well, I just want to say, I promise you, as of tomorrow, which is the day before this podcast goes up, I'm sure there's going to be 10 new roster changes. Yeah, 10 new roster changes apparently. Because I can't put my fucking phone down for 2 seconds. Like I popped on this podcast, like when we started recording, and you mentioned like a roster change I didn't even hear about. Or
it's all over the place. Every 2 seconds.
I don't think we've had like a split with or even a year.
This split just feels weird, dude.
The Imperial Hell domino effect.
Really?
Right?
That's what it was.
Really set something off, the Imperial Hell domino effect.
It did.
All over the place, man.
I agree. I think it did. So let's do a quick overview of the standings in NA as they stand right now. Falcons obviously in first, SSG in second, Furia in third, TSM in fourth. They're actually tied for third with Furia. LG 5, NRG 6, Skidmark 7, Flat at 8, Oxygen at 9, Team Liquid at 10, Tripods at 11, and Complexity at 12. So those would be your 12 NA teams going to land. Just outside of that, we've got some notables. We've got Weave, we've got CCE, we've got C9 down there, and then we also have the big ones: Moist, DSG, E8. So we'll see how everything plays out. Still relatively early in the season. But now, ladies and gentlemen, let's throw it on down to our interview with DiA, the ALGS caster who is on the desk. DiA hopped on, and it was an awesome interview, a longer interview. Talked a lot about casting, the career, but also some of the storylines and things going on in ALGS as it stands right now. It's very awesome to have DiA on for the second time. So let's hit a quick ad, and ladies and gents, send it on down to DiA. All right, everyone. Very special guest returning to the pod for the second time. But the first time, it was a dual interview with Spider Tiff. We have DiA on the show. You can see DiA on the desk at the ALGS or on your computer screen on the Play Apex Twitch account, wherever you watch your ALGS action. DiA, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Honestly, having met both of you in person, I'm very, very excited to chill, to hang out with people who I already got to talk to a bit at length. We didn't really get to have long conversations because everything was so rushed.
Yeah. No, it's way better this time. And I do want to apologize for Jayhawk rudely walking over to you while you're sitting down and and pointing at me across the crowd and being like, "Hey," he wanted to say what's up. I told him, I was like, "Oh, there's DiA." He goes, "You want to go talk to him?" And I go, "Nah, he's had a long day of casting. He's probably wants to relax." Jayhawk's like, "Nah, I'm gonna walk over there right now." And he just walked over there, and then he did the
hey, happened.
That's my boy over there. That's my boy over there. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, all right, I got to walk over there then. So
I have to
apologize
give Jay,
for that.
We slander Jay too much on this pod. I have to give Jay a little bit of credit here. He said, Wyatt, DiA's like the most approachable dude ever. Just go say hi. And it was Wyatt being like, no, for 50 minutes. And Jayhawk's like, okay. He goes, if you really want to meet DiA, let me just go help you out and get DiA for you. And he walked over politely and then got DiA for you.
Yeah,
don't say
I just
that.
didn't want. I don't think I said anything crazy. I'm just saying
You said
I
that
wanted
he
to
rudely
relax.
walked over.
I get it. I am the same kind of person. I wouldn't want to bother someone either. However, I think it's important that we insert into this story that when Jayhawk was like, "Oh, do you that's Wyatt? If you have time, come say hi to him." I was like, "Oh my god, that's Wyatt!" I can't wait to talk to him. So, there's. I think it was a beneficial situation. I got to talk to you. You got to talk. In fact, I was actually just at the gym, but this time I wasn't listening to the Apex podcast because I'd already listened to it. I was listening to
There we go. There we go. No, it's always a weird walk when he pointed me over and I'm 17 rows away and I'm like, I gotta walk over
you did,
1,000
walk
people.
was awkward.
And then I'm just I'm like, oh my god, dude, I gotta walk all the way over here. Shout out Jayhawk though. What a legend, what a guy. But yeah, so now we've actually all met. It's great, it's grand. I even got to play Apex with you a little bit. We got 2 dubs. That was a good time.
Yeah. That was exciting. That was courtesy of you and Jayhawk, honestly.
No,
I don't know what's happening with me.
Listen, this is what I want to bring up. This will actually lead into my first casting question, I guess, because it was interesting getting to sit down and play with somebody who cast the game, because the entire time we were playing, you were kind of being like, okay, this is where I think Zone's going to pull. This is where this team should go. This is where that team should go. And I guess the first question is, do you play the game sometimes just to kind of get those reps in, to kind of figure out how you want to, or how you think teams are going to play certain zones or maybe rotates and stuff like that? Does that happen, or is it just kind of naturally what comes out when you're playing Apex?
I think it is naturally what comes out when I play Apex. When I started on console in mid-pandemic, that was also the way that I liked to think about the game. It's been accentuated because of pro play, but I play when I play the game, I am looking for those things. I play the game really frequently, because even outside of me enjoying the game, and I do enjoy the game, but outside of me enjoying the game, it gives you a game sense that I really rely on in my style of casting. When you watch me, I'm like, this team is going to do this, and they're going to do this, and they're going to do this, and I figure those things out by getting a sense of what exactly the timing needs to be on on a rotation for it to like avoid other teams that are coming from other POIs, or when enough damage has been done for one position to be sendable versus not, you know?
Mm-hmm. And I think what adds to it too is like, at least when I think of my own personal like situation, when I used to play the game like every single day, my zone calls were on point. Like I'd watch Pro League and I'd know every single zone. But then also too, funny enough, from watching Pro League, I'd know every zone for my games. Whereas like I haven't played as much lately, and I'm not as good at zone calling anymore. So I'd imagine like that would help a ton when you're casting, like seeing how the games play out in your games. Like you could like recall like, okay, well, I think this is going to pull North Climatizer, and you could probably get that because you've had like 10, 15 reps doing that yourself.
Yeah,
Running your World's
like
Edge games, right?
Yeah,
Like,
you get a lot of experience on the patches. I remember when I started casting, you know, like you listen to player comms as you do, and somebody was calling out that like they were seeing zones that were actually from a couple patches ago, and that's when I realized that like just by playing the game repeatedly, you could get a sense for like almost eras of rings, and that science has been shifted up a little bit by new ring algorithm. It is a little harder to predict, but in large part you actually can follow that and say, oh, actually like these past three zones that I've seen I also saw a couple months ago, and you can like rewind that clock in your head to like, okay, now that we're going thermal, what were the rings that I saw in thermal around 3 months ago?
one of the most interesting ones I remember or I recall of like that happening, listening to the comms, was Game 8 of Champs when TSM won, and this guy or Dojo at the time specifically see a zone, and I'm pretty sure its enemy goes like, this can't be Thunderwatch, right? I haven't seen that in months. And this guy's like, but it is. This is it. It's because they knew from months ago the circle pattern. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Chills.
Do you find it hard sometimes to like turn it off when you're trying to just relax and play Apex? Like you just constantly are in that zone of figuring out what's going where, how these things are going to play out in front of you, and how it can translate to potentially when you go on the stage and start casting.
Do I find it difficult to turn it off? I don't find it difficult because I don't try and do it. It's the way that I enjoy the game. I find it difficult when I'm playing pubs and there are 3 teams left and none of it matters anymore. Like, and not just because I can't find action, but because literally, like, why I'm not learning anything from this game. And so, yeah, I prefer when it is on. I prefer when we have like end games that, you know, it's ranked. You're never going to get 20 teams. When you've got like 10 teams in the third zone, you can start thinking about how everybody impacts each other.
Yeah, no, 100%. Speaking of all kind of meeting one another, I think we need to go back and revisit that split one LAN. I thought it was the best LAN we had ever seen, and obviously I wasn't at home watching the broadcast like personally, but as far as being in the building, everything just felt smooth. It felt really good, solid. I loved it. And then we got one of the best storylines of all time, being that a non-NA team, you know, wins it, and or not a non-NA team, but really a team that wasn't TSM or Dark Zero winning it. How did you feel about Split One LAN?
I mean, I loved it. I think the difficult thing about telling you how I feel about it is because like, I mean, I worked it. What am I going to say? Like, I was there. I was having the time of my life. I do agree that it was like really good for the Apex ecosystem. I think a lot of people have brought that up since then. But having gone to the past couple of LANs, because my first LAN was in Rally. I think I missed Split 1 playoffs of the next year. Then I hit Split 2 playoffs, champs, and now this one. Like, it really has been a steady incline of, I think, the ALGS team and the EA team really figuring out exactly how to make the experience not just good for the competitive viewer, but for the community member that wants to attend. I think there was just enough stuff to do around LAN, and we might be able to push that a little bit further, that could bring people into the Apex universe, while then giving them, I think, enough graphical assistance to help out when they were learning about how the competitive game worked. The people who I was talking to when we ended up meeting, they were watching Apex for the first time. There's friends of mine from ages ago that I was like, please come to this LAN. You live here. And like just because of the incremental adjustments that we've been able to make in terms of audience clarity, teams that we highlight when they're on match point or what, or like how we X teams out when legends get picked where, and the way that the observing has gone, all of those have gone up in quality, like on a steady curve over the past couple of lands, to the point that these people who had never watched Apex before were still having a good experience. We're still getting to understand the game and put that together, and that's what I think makes it like the best land so far for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what like being that like when I was there, and then because Jayhawk was on the broadcast, I was hanging out with him a lot, getting to kind of join you guys in the green room and see what you guys do. Like, I don't think a lot of people realize how much work, like specifically you guys on the analyst desk as casters, are doing behind the scenes, where you guys are all there like 7 a.m. in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. I know you have a few different call times, but studying like everything from the day before, preparing, and then between the games, like you guys are always back in the green room, like constantly bouncing ideas off. They had like they had printouts of like where everyone's landing, the POIs, notes, and everything like that. And they're just constantly talking about the tournament all day long, building out these notes so that this way, when they go on the analyst test, you guys can perform or the best for the viewers, give them like the best breakdown for in the simplest way possible so that everyone can understand it. I mean, maybe talk about that. So like, what are some of your things that you do going into a day at LAN, whether you're going to be on analyst test, you're casting, that you do to prepare for the sets that you're going to be talking about?
I write a lot of things down because there is a lot of information. And so when you get into a game of Apex with 20 teams and there are 40 at the event and a bunch of groups that have just happened and whatever, like everything that you know sort of flies out the window. And so I find the practice of actually physically writing things, even whether I look at my notebook or not, I always have it on stage with me, helps me remember what story points I want to touch on and what is like most important about a team. It may help me if they've shifted landing spots between groups, remember what landing spot they're going at so that I have that more easily. And then I'll normally pull up stats. If it's at the start of the LAN, I'm not so reliant on those, but I'll maybe pull up a few historic ones like, oh, they had, you know, like this player on this team had the highest damage per like in their region, or the most kills in their region, whatever that is. And, you know, depending on what stats we get, I'll write down some of those, some key things to talk about. Something that I did with Jayhawk, and we're going to keep talking about him. He's like the ghost in the room.
He's always around.
Something that I did with Jayhawk before this LAN, I wanted to try a new approach to storytelling within it. And so we pulled up each group or each match day, like A and B, B and C, etc. And from each match day, we picked 4 teams that I was going to talk about no matter what was happening. And so if E8 was just 20th place, 20th place, 20th place, for example, I was still going to talk about E8 and 3 other teams, and we grouped them by narrative. I don't remember. I'll have to find the document. But we had, you know, narratives like, here are the underdogs. Here are like IGLs with really big personalities. Here are teams that made it here to everyone's surprise. I guess that's similar to underdogs, but I don't remember the categories right now, but we grouped them by narrative. And so that was an attempt, and I think it went reasonably well, to basically say, here are, at the end of it, I think 24 total teams, because we had 6 rounds. 24 total teams, all of whom are different, all of whom have a pretty good chance of being in finals. And because I'm talking about at least 4 of them every time that I'm on stage, you're going to be reasonably familiar with some core storylines for each team that's in the finals. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
No, it does. And I think it works too, because you were talking earlier about the graphics that they added to make it to where the more casual viewer can get a broader scope and understanding of what ALGS is. When I came to LAN, I had brought some friends who play Apex, but they did not really pay attention to ALGS. And by the end of it, they had bought out all of the merch tents and were telling me stats and facts that I didn't know heading into finals. So I think that's what made this one so fantastic, and going exactly what you were talking about with your narratives. A lot of these narratives ended up giving that scope to these people who weren't fully familiar with these teams, and then they started to follow these teams. Like the one friend I was talking about became like a huge Cloud9 guy, now is following the team going into Split 2. He's even been on some of our watch parties. So it's like it's interesting how that little thing right there, that little change in preparation or just the addition to that preparation makes such a massive difference on the stage. It just makes such a big difference. And I'm sure that's not the only way you prepare, because not only do you have to get all of the stats, you got to get the teams, all the knowledge, you also have to work on your voice. You have to work on your calls, how you want them to go, your color commentary. How do you work on that? Because we already know you can prepare as much as you want, but when it comes down to the call, you still got to get in there and you got to put the mic to your mouth and start speaking. Is there anything you do in the off season or in between match days, maybe even in between lands, that you really try to focus on just structurally when it comes to just your voice and your calls?
My voice is something that I get to rely on my theater training to take care of. I actually probably like my voice teacher, she's not dead, but she's rolling in her metaphorical grave because she's not a teacher anymore, because I do not do my daily voice practice nearly as much as I should, but I still warm up in the same way as I did for all of my theatrical performances, which is a bit weird, and I don't like doing it in front of people. And and then when it comes to like verbiage and how we're actually calling things, that's something that I worked on a lot early as a caster. This year, my thing that I'm working on has been less of a focus on what words I am saying, but how I am saying them. I naturally am a pretty specific person. I pick my words pretty carefully. But I think that if you look at, and I invite those who are curious to go back and look at like Split 2 playoffs and the way that I was casting then versus the way that I cast at this previous LAN, a lot of my focus over the past year has gone from taking that specificity and the analysis and learning exactly when it's best to sort of take the cap off that and try and feed more into the energy of the arena and of the stories that necessitates it. Because I might sit there and go, oh wow, Dojo actually have a really good position right now, as an example. But that's not preparing the audience for the storyline of Dojo and everything we built up for them through that match. Previously, I was offloading a lot of that to Tiff, and I'd go, okay, I'm going to analyze. You're gonna get excited. And now we're moving a lot more of that between us, and I'm definitely shouldering a lot more weight than I was last year, which I think was a failing of mine in the way that you carry an audience's emotional arc.
You and like on that, it's kind of funny because you even had the opportunity to really carry one of the days when you got paired up with Graceful. It was like his second time casting anything ever, and they like dropped that on you guys like 5 minutes before you were on stage. What was
that was a funny day, because that actually is a perfect example. Normally I do what's called color casting, where I'm the analyst when I'm with Tiff. I commentated with both Graceful and Gaskin that day, so I did play-by-play, color, play-by-play, which was actually a fantastic day, and it's ended up changing the, like, Tiff and I had a really long conversation about that, basically going, well, this play-by-play actually really worked. Tiff was like, I want to see more of that from you. Let's start to shift around some responsibilities in our duo so that we can bring out more of the energy that you've got, but that you sort of focus into this role.
Yeah, Tiff, I think, was explaining that to me actually while we were at LAN. I was briefly asking her some questions about how her day was going. I mean, all this has made me think of, though, like, and maybe you don't. I asked some of this in the past. I can't remember which caster it was, but do you have like a specific call of yours that like kind of stands out to you as like iconic and like you think was like, I nailed that one, that was good, and like sticks with you?
No, not I don't have any epic calls yet. That's not something that I think I've got. I'm particularly fond of my can I get you some extra meat when Meat Lovers killed TSM last year. That I like it. Just I was talking to Tech and Bloop a lot at the time, and I was really hyped on Meat Lovers, and so I'm glad that we got that in there, and it actually fit really well. I think I had some pretty good calls, but I I think that actually that's something I'm still working on, is how to phrase something that is hype versus how to phrase something that like opens itself to be memorable. There are a lot of books on like how you talk and like the way you pick your words, and I've been thinking about that. It's difficult because I don't want to ever call something as super special and have it fall on its face. And I think that fear of being wrong has held me back a lot. It's something that I'm still, working through.
Yeah, so you mentioned the theater background, and I know for everybody who listened to our first interview with DiA, you talked a little bit about that. But for anybody new to the show, I kind of want you to go back over how you got into casting in the first place, because I do think it's a very interesting story. Because a lot of times casters come from sports or they've been watching sports their whole lives, and you kind of came from a completely separate background. So can you kind of just go over that story again and how you kind of fell into the casting side of things?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, I wasn't allowed to watch a lot of like games growing up. I wasn't allowed to game a lot, period. I think I got World of Warcraft for 30 minutes a day until I was like 14, and then it was basically no video games because I was, doing a lot of other stuff. I actually did play the original Harry Potter. I'm going off on a tangent. But yeah, so I played some sports in high school and took more of a backseat in those as well. I played goalie for my water polo team,
Nice.
and then I ended up basically like shifting into solo sports. I did wrestling. I did sculling in the rowing team for a little while, and then shifted like really much harder into theater because I'd done it throughout all of throughout all of high school. Then auditioned for our university's theater program, got in, and was like, well, if I got in, maybe it's good. And yeah, I'm up here in Vancouver for those that may not know. Vancouver is really known for its not so much theater but definitely film scene, and sort of expected to go out of university, go do that. I got out of university, I kind of started doing that, and then we took a small step back as everything sort of shut down for a few years. And at that point, I have neglected to mention that I actually got into esports throughout college because I started playing some games with some friends. You make a few college friends, and you're like, all right, let's hang out and play some games.
Longer than 30 minutes at a time?
Yeah, longer than 30 minutes at a time.
Okay.
I'm finally free. And yeah, so I'd started playing a lot with them throughout college, and then they fell off, and I kept playing. I got into Apex, and then as the pandemic happened, I went, all right, well, I know how to talk. I've always thought that esports was really cool. Like esports is kind of nerdy, but like because at the end you're sitting around, you're playing games, and like you're just having fun with your mates. But I was like, I don't think anybody's I don't think people realize how absurd can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how absurdly fucking cool like the pro gamers are. I know maybe it's kind of cringe, but I think they're so cool. And and like that had stuck with me from watching League of Legends, from watching Smash, and when I started watching Apex, it was a very similar thing. And so I got into it casting League of Legends. I did a bunch of like free stuff, and eventually started doing slightly more paid stuff. I worked my way up to like the Academy broadcast. For those of you who are familiar with League, I started my English broadcast of the CBLOL, which is still going to this day. And then when Apex tournaments started to open up to that third party, we had that little golden age. You remember the little everyone's doing a third party tournament? I started applying to a bunch of those, as well as some charity tournaments for no money. Did a few of those, and didn't really think Apex was going to go anywhere, which I think was actually a really big part. Like my Apex career, I didn't think my Apex career was going to go anywhere, which I think was a really big part of my then success in my Apex career, because I was basically just like, I cashed this, you should give me a job, which is something I never ever did previously. And so I just did that to a bunch of people. I was paired with Zephyr, who is way more audacious than I am. And one gig turned into another. And I think when I was working with Nerd Street, and they just before they were doing Challenger Circuit, I was doing Challenger Circuit with a broadcaster called Game Time that I again had just sort of been like, hey, I've been doing these tournaments, I want to do these with you, and started doing Challenger Circuit. And I was like, hold on, this is like the level that I've gotten to through years of hard work, a year and a half maybe of hard work in League of Legends, and I've just sort of like done it in like a couple of months here in Apex. I think I could do this. And I just like kept grinding Challenger circuits, getting as many third-party gigs as I possibly could, and tuning into every broadcast that I could, interviewing players when I could. And I mean, and then one day the reality is that you just sort of get an email out of the blue. That's like there's no real lead up to it. It's just sort of like email, ALGS question mark. And you're like, oh my god.
And you're like, yes, I'll do that.
Is this a scam? What's happening? Yeah, exactly.
Every
exactly.
time when I see that stuff, I'm like, oh, this must be fake. I'm like, because it can't be real.
Which is a
I'm like,
crazy thought to have, because like if a scammer was going to email you about anything, I doubt it would be Apex Legends Global Series related. It would probably be something completely different. But it's funny how we naturally think of that, you know?
At the point that a scammer reaches out to me, an aspiring caster, to scam me with the Apex Legends Global Series, they deserve their money. They've done their homework. I'm not just another hit to them. Yeah.
yeah. They've done their job. But yeah, so your ultimate moment was really just that email. There was like no big crazy, pop off, awesome, oh my god, I made it. I'm falling to my knees in the thundering rain, like waving my fist at the sky. Yes, I did it. It was just I got an email. And I'm on the ALGS now.
Not to say that I wasn't absolutely elated, I didn't get the email at a Walmart, so there was none of that, But like
a Walmart parking lot.
Yeah. but it did it did sort of happen. Just I think to the staff that reached out to me from the ALGS, it seems like sort of a, hey, this has been coming for a long time. We've seen this coming for a long time, but there was no way for me to see it coming, because you do put in a lot of work, and as much as you hope that it goes somewhere, I think that in order to keep yourself sane, you can't really expect that your work goes anywhere.
Yeah.
I will say as well, I had a lot of people going to bat for me who were in ALGS at the time, and I think that really helped. Like a lot of the gigs that I had done through Challenger Circuit had me working, especially with people like Vicky, who has been a big advocate of mine for a really long time. And I know that she was basically like asking about me, being like, hey, did you see this guy DiA that I've worked with? He's, and so having that kind of, even if I never got the gig, validation from somebody who I thought was a really good commentator. And so to have, another good commentator go, hey, even if this doesn't happen, I'm asking about you because I think your art is really good. That was definitely a contributing factor, and also like a great victory in itself,
How about the LAN debut though too? So like to extend on to, like, you got the email for Pro League, but then after you got invited out to LAN, was it Split 2 playoffs was the first one? Like last Split 2 playoffs was the first one where you were part of the desk and everything. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Cool. So like, what was it like then now to like know everything you've done behind a screen for such a long time? You at least had gone out to a LAN in the past before, but now you're there, you're on stage, like, and you're working it. Like, tell us about that a bit.
Real talk, I was so much more confident going to LAN because of all the theater training I'd done. Yeah. I was like, oh my god, finally I get to like do the thing in front of people that I trained to do. And so at that time, still I was in the like testing phase, and I knew that I think it would be silly not to acknowledge that me going to LAN for the first time is still definitely me being evaluated. So I was very nervous. I think that it helps that my first time ever casting on LAN was a 40-minute stall because something had to be restarted. I don't even remember the specifics, but Randy and I were up there talking for 40 minutes about the match day. And it was one of those things where we were talking, and I was like, I mean, I could keep doing this. And we got off stage and people were like, you nailed that. And at that point, you've gone beyond what has been asked of you. And I did sort of go, well, even if they didn't like, even if the ephemeral sort of people who, I don't know, whatever, didn't like what I brought to the table, I was like, I think I've contributed something really nice, and I've helped out in a way that I don't think you can count on everybody to like keep their cool during. So I felt really confident coming out of that, and I was really thankful, of course, to basically be surrounded by people who told me the same thing. I got off stage, and not just commentators, but like production were like, that was awesome. You're awesome, and they've never not done that. The ALGS is very supportive.
Yeah, people give a lot of like flack to like EA, but everyone I met from EA and then the production people that put on the LAN, amazing people, every single one of them. Like they're so passionate about what they do, and they're super supportive and like coming to give you like good feedback, constructive feedback, but then also just gassing you up for like the shit that you do out there. They're great.
That's what's up. Honestly, like, yeah, I left Split 2 playoffs feeling like $1 million, and of course, nervous every time that I'm going to a LAN, because you want to do well, but the supportive environment that you talk about, like that's always been there. Yeah.
So we've started to ask this question to all the pros we have on, because it's one of those things that I can't shake. It started off as a very stupid question that I asked Zainu, I think, and he kind of shook it off. I shelved the question for a while. I'm going to bring back the stupid question, and it's even stupider this time because you're not on the stage, but I got to ask, if you were playing, would you be top bunk or bottom bunk on the actual stage? Which one do you think you would want to play at? We have a running tally right now. Right now, I believe top bunk is winning 2-1.
I think I'm a bottom bunker.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it feels more grounded. This is
you did play in it, didn't you, for the solos challenge?
Yeah, the solos.
I didn't.
You played in the solos?
I was casting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But you remember like the reject like stand up?
Yeah.
Like that camera cuts to him and he's just like, that's fuck so. I think that a lot more powerful on the ground, you feel planted.
Yeah. You can't celebrate too much on the top bunk. You might fall right through.
Yeah.
You might have like some like, because like I think it was Champs or Split 2, you guys were kind of on a platform raised up in between, whereas this recent playoffs, you guys were kind of almost like directly in the crowd. You really were.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe like it wasn't the greatest being in where like your backs were to a lot of the crowd this time when you were casting, but how about like just like in terms of the energy, like being up higher or like being like with the fans? Like what would you say about that? That kind of might play into like the top or bottom bunk thing here.
Yeah, I mean I think it's almost a thing where I preferred being nearer to the crowd. And that's more of a like casting philosophy thing. There are like two, it's just very vastly simplified. There are two sort of fields of casting that people fall into. And one is I am the personality. I'm what people are here to see. And the other is I'm here and I should be basically invisible. And this is the game. Let's talk about the game. Like you know what I'm saying? Sort of guiding that emotional orchestra, but from the backseat versus from a like more content creator perspective. I fall into the category of people who kind of want to be invisible. Like, I don't want you to think too much about the fact that I'm casting. I want you to be there in the moment with the players. And I felt like being in the audience was really conducive to that because we were experiencing everything so much closer to everyone. And when you're up on stage and you're looking at everyone, it is very cool and it's dope and it immerses you in a very different way. But there's a physical level of separation there that symbolically or artistically, I just, I prefer to be a little closer to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Well, okay. I think we've talked enough about Split 1. I think we got to move into what's happening right now in Split 2. And we've only had 3 match days so far. I think some other regions have had more. I'm not 100% sure yet. But
yes, other regions have had more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think was it Apex South, or they already
Apex
on like
South's done a bunch.
yeah,
Like,
they're done.
they're-
They already did land. It's over.
yeah, yeah. They're I
yeah.
don't know. I feel like they're on like 5 or 6. Not nowhere to
It's
lie.
crazy. It's crazy. But from your perspective, we mostly talk NA on this show, but I know you do a little bit of EMEA as well, and I'm sure you're tuned into all the other ones. Split 2 so far. What are your thoughts? And I kind of want to start off with NA right now, but some of the other regions as well. How has Split 2 started in your opinion?
I think it's been pretty solid. I expected a little less catalyst than we ended up getting, which, maybe a misread on the meta from my part. The Bangalore Bloodhound being a mainstay, I don't think was really going anywhere based off of the patch that we got. And so I'm not surprised to see them sticking around. Fuse's introduction with the ring console buff has been really refreshing to watch in a lot of ways, and I like that the way that was balanced hasn't really pushed him to be an oppressive or necessary pick, because if everybody's running Fuse, I will start complaining about it. I won't actually, because that's not my job, but internally
I'll
I would
do it
start
for you.
complaining about it. Yeah, thank you.
We'll do it.
I
agree.
think that Fuse is at an appropriate level right now, and I'm enjoying that. I don't think that we have a region in North America that is as figured out as it was last year in Split 2. If you go back to last year's Split 2, I think that you actually have a lot of people who are super on top of it in all the groups, and you're like, wow, there's a lot going on that's basically like Battle of the Titans in a like very cliche sense. And this North American Split 1 feels a lot more chaotic because of Roster Mania, of course, but like it is difficult to predict who is coming out on top of anything, because I don't think that every IGL, every team has a good idea of how to navigate end games with the variety of compositions that we're seeing.
It's a
Yeah,
very good
it's
point.
interesting. It's very weird. I mean, if you look at the bottom team in NA, bottom team in NA was on Final Sunday just a few months ago. E8
yeah.
at the very bottom, and then just 2 spots ahead of that, you've got DSG. A couple spots ahead of that, you got Moist. I mean, these are all Final Sunday teams that were very close to winning the whole damn thing at the bottom. So I think that's a great point that you make there. And with these variety of different legends, we didn't even mention like a Lifeline that seems to be getting picked here and there a little bit more. So it's definitely interesting. Is there one standout team as far as just storylines go that you've been closely paying attention to that has surprised you in a way in Split 2?
A team that surprised me that I'm paying attention to. E8, I think, are the big one. They are. A lot of people have expectations for them that I am still anticipating they'll do better in this split. I don't know how they'll do in the larger course of the competitive year when it comes to next playoffs and champs. I like to keep my eyes on Challenger Circuit teams because I don't flex this very often, so I am going to flex it right now. I have been on every Challenger Circuit since Challenger Circuit started. I've never not been on a Challenger Circuit season, so I'm always watching the Challenger Circuit. So I always watch the teams that just come up. I'm really excited about Weave. I think Weave are playing super well, and no one is talking about it. They're in 13th, 14th right now. They're very
13th,
close. Yeah. And I think their comms are really solid. They are getting used to what it's like to be in Pro League, but it's one of those things that's like they're not doing quite well enough that everybody gets to go, oh, wow, what a team. But like they are playing well above the standard that, as you said, Wyatt, a lot of teams that made finals are playing at right now. And I think that's worth mentioning.
Yeah, I think
Totally.
the first game of Pro League overall, they rotated from Overlook all the way over to Skyhook and won that game. And you're like, hell yeah. And then they followed it up with the 20th place. So it's like, what are we getting here? Like,
yeah.
What's happening?
I'm not
What's
saying they're
going on?
untouchable. Yeah.
It's definitely this split feels like the weirdest one. And I think the biggest domino was the fact that TSM Imperial Hal is no longer TSM Imperial Hal. He goes over to Falcons. And I think, I'm not saying that is the sole reason why this has been a weird split, but it definitely threw a wrench in things. Like it's just felt way different than split ones. Like you said, split one had like this solidified feel, and we're not even mentioning one of the biggest changes, the POI draft, and how that has changed things. I kind of wanted to go into that a little bit. Your thoughts on the POI draft and where you stand with that.
For me, who has always been a little bit more into the numbers game of Apex Legends, I have found the POI draft to be really refreshing, and as a commentator, it provides a lot more room for analysis during the early game than when hot drops were happening. And part of the reason for that is like it just evens out the pace of the game a lot more. You don't have fighting, maybe more fighting the end of the game, which doesn't leave a lot of room for you to talk about teams. Now I know when we're dropping in, I can talk about, you know what, here are native, this is what native are up to, this is why you should care about them, and here's Empire, this is their POI, this is what they should be doing next. I know that I have time to talk about that because nobody's landing on top of each other. So from a pace of the game, from a viewership perspective, like I just think it makes it a lot more free, easy flowing. And then from an analytical perspective, I think that I actually published an article on Twitter about it, not to plug myself because I don't know how that works and I don't make any money on it. I did. But about how the POI draft also did an interesting thing with Apex Legends, where I think before you could be watching as a viewer, like a casual, and go, well, TSM always land Lava Siphon, but I'm not going to do that in my regular games. Like, what am I going to do? Like fight 18 teams at Lava Siphon because everybody lands there? The fact that we have a POI draft, I am a big fan of because it incentivizes viewers to mirror what they see in competitive. And I think that the driving force behind whether an esport is successful or not is whether you as a viewer can go, oh, I like what that pro team did, I'm going to do that. And now the way that pro is structured, you want to land in a spot that has no one else in it, even if it's not as good, even if it's not whatever, because the game is about rewarding how you prepare after that, not whether you can win a 50-50. And I think that shift in like how viewers perceive how the game should be played is the most important and the best part for me.
I like your takes there on like the early game, because that was often like I was never fully against the draft, but my reservations were, well, now we go from having an exciting fight and then like 4 or 5 minutes of no one really kind of doing anything until they get set up, and then a really hectic end game to about 7 to 8 minutes of just like nothing going on. But I do agree with what you're saying, because sometimes my troubles with watching even the main broadcast is just that when I can't choose the teams I want to watch myself, I find that I don't actually get the full scope of what's going on with the game. Whereas like now what you're saying is like we can give the analytics of like and the breakdown of different teams to help develop like that full scope of the teams in the lobby. So
Like,
that's really interesting. That like is something that I hadn't thought of before. I mean, like now I'm fully on board with the POI draft. I love it. I think that there's still some things maybe that could be improved. But like, I think it's great. And then to your points about mirroring like the actual game, I think I've said this several times. I think they should do it in ranked. I think ranked should have not a POI draft, but I think they should just randomly drop teams when they load up on a lobby on a random POI. I think it would be pretty good.
The one thing I was interested about with the POI draft, and the one qualm I have with it, and it will no longer be a qualm once we get to LAN, I'm sure. I think it will be all figured out. But I've always wondered how they're going to implement it when it comes to a LAN setting. And I don't know if you're going to be in the know on what exactly they plan on doing, but I saw your funny little video with Zephyr and Jayhawk. I think Jayhawk made it. I'm not.
Yes,
he
Jayhawk
made
did
it, right?
make it, yeah.
That video was awesome because that's
Mhm.
exactly what I want to see at LAN. And I know that it was meant in like a satirical, funny way, but I actually think that would be an awesome way to do the POI draft. Do you have any idea of what they plan to do when it comes to this upcoming LAN with the draft, this being the first one that the draft is involved with?
Do you remember earlier when I said that one of my strengths that I'm very specific with my words?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see it. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that the draft system and exploring how that impacts competitive is something that all the team at the ALGS are really interested in showcasing. The commentators want to be able to talk about those things in a way that brings the audience into it. And I know that the graphics and production team are working on that as well. It will be a balancing game as to whether we can get player schedules and production assets to align. And bring that to reality at LAN, but I know that it is being worked on to provide the best viewing experience possible.
I think that answers a lot.
That's exciting. It
That was
answers
very
a lot.
professional.
Very professional, very specific. But that's
Yeah.
exciting. I love to hear that.
If this doesn't work out, you could always go into HR, I think that
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
HR, PR.
Yeah, that's the backup.
Yeah. You got that one right
Realist-
there.
But realistically, that's exciting because like I think like just that video that you guys did, I think that sort of almost like a show around like the least final Sunday could just be electric to see where people, and it's not a snake draft too. It's one like first pick gets 21st pick, not first gets 40th. And I think that creates a little bit more of an exciting like how teams are going to pick as well. And there's a lot more incentive or like advantages provided to that first place team going into finals. So yeah, I just think it could be really exciting to see that.
Yeah, I mean, speaking from it, just like what DiA thinks about it, I'd really like to see, even if it's not a live thing, because there's actually a very good chance that the players and coaches end up doing it when they're not on stage, like when they're back at the hotel, whatever it is. Just because setting all that up with league ops can take some time, like as players have to move from space to space. But at the very least, it would be cool to see it announced in a way, like in the order that it was drafted, even if that is sped up artificially, to take the audience through that journey, because like you're saying, it is performance based at LAN. And so to see that first like slam on the map and then how everybody responds to that will have a really cool ripple effect. It's about how we can best tell that story.
Sky West doesn't get picked first, the crowd goes
nuts.
No!
Yeah.
Cliffside.
No, that's what I was
taking
about.
it now?
That's what I was about to bring up. Is I think what I'm going to do for Split 2 LAN if I end up going is you know how at like the NFL draft, whenever the team is on the board, they just put the camera on their fans. They're all wearing like the jersey. They got the hats on. They're all excited for who they're going to draft. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make just a bunch of Cliffside jerseys, just a bunch of Cliffside everything. To have hats, jerseys, everything. And I'm just going to be begging. I'm going to be in front of a camera. I'm going to find the camera. I'm just going to be in front of it, hoping that Cliffside gets drafted. That's going to be my goal for either Split 2 or Champs. I'm going to be doing that's what I want to bring to the table with the Apex, the podcast. We're going to be wearing Cliffside jerseys. We're looking
That
for
is
that
amazing.
draft pick.
That is amazing. You are amazing. Have you seen the Furia tweet?
Didn't they pick it today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they?
Yeah,
I have got to find that tweet for you. If for audio listeners, we'll find a way to link it or something. But let me find it, because oh my god,
I just happened to be watching Keon stream. Like I clicked on it just like out of the blue, and I just looked, and he was like, "Should I pick Cliffside, or are we gonna pick Cliffside?" And then he was in Wig stream in the chat, being like, "Chat, we're picking Cliffside. We're going with it." And then they picked it. Wig went crazy. It was a whole moment. It was awesome. It was a great.
I thought it was so funny, actually.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
Oh my god. Yeah, I gotta come up with a design for the Cliffside jersey. Shouldn't be too big of a deal. We'll figure it out.
I think you know how people like have started doing minimalist things in stores. Like there's just a white paper bag with flower on it.
Yeah.
I think you should get that like super typeface text Cliff_side.
No,
the Apex logo on the back, fucking canvas. Like
there we go.
Yeah,
I love it.
I think even better,
you know
just
what? I'm
white
gonna
t-shirt.
Oh, go
I
ahead.
was just say white T-shirt with the black box and the green text.
The
So there's
black box.
the black
Dude,
box
put
and
the
the green
number
text
on there.
cliffside
Yeah.
with number 16 cliffside.
Yeah.
Oh, put number 16 on the back
Put
too.
number 16 on the back.
That would
Yes.
be so
Put
good.
Dia,
Yeah.
you got to help us design this thing. You got to help us
100%.
design this
I'm
thing.
there.
And
I'm there.
Because I like that needs to be my thing. Like with my sports background, all I want is to just make Apex as close to like my regular sports as I possibly can. And for me to be like a crazy, I think I might face paint. I think I might have somebody face paint Cliffside
Yes.
on my face and then just go there ready for it to get drafted. And then ultimately it's not going to get drafted. And then there's just going to be but I'm going to get
Actually,
the whole
how much do
crowd
we have
with
to
me.
pay you to wear it on the desk, Dia? Like,
Here's the,
you don't think you could do that?
I don't know. That's a difficult branding question. I actually, it's just occurred to me when we were pitching this minimalist thing. How funny would it be if you just pimp it out with a bunch of like conflicting logos? You've got like Logitech Steel Series, like the Playboy logo over here, and you just got like like a bunch. What's the Emirates? Right underneath it, like
soccer one.
Yeah, just as many logos as you can for Cliffside.
Yeah, I'm down
Yeah.
with that. I'm down. Like, no, it's great. We got to get you on the design for this because
my
that's
God.
that's
That
my
might
thing.
stop you.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just saying that might stop you from getting on camera.
I'll find a way. I'll find a way. I'm going to be running up and down the stage, but no, that's kind of what I think the draft does bring. And at first, I was really like, I wasn't super happy with it because I think in the early going, I enjoyed as a viewer the contests, but as it's gone on, I've started to realize, man, this could really change the way a LAN plays out. And I think so. The last time we brought you on the show, you were heavily interested in South America and like that region and trying to get more of that exposure to them. And I feel like it kind of sucks because they lost out. I think they still get 2 spots, but they kind of lost out on that opportunity because a lot of those teams were already solidified in their drop spots. Now, if that were to be in play where they could actually land, get looted up, do all of that, I think it would have really changed the way some of these regions are viewed. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, I think the biggest part of it comes from the way that ping impacts them in scrims as well. I know that the South American teams that made it this time actually, did feel relatively comfortable contesting in scrims, but they've kind of been playing POI draft for longer than we have because you know that weird thing that I think is the BR Demons did it this time. Somebody else did it last time, where they just drop Lava Siphon contested like absolute psychos for like everything, and then in losers round they just get siphon. You know what I'm saying? They've been trying to POI draft because you literally can't contest on the ping from South America anyways, and that's been a source of frustration. And ping is going to always be a source of frustration in international scrims, but I think that the way that this evens things out in performance actually really equalizes that. I want to go back, give me a second. Let's pull up the split year 4 split 1. I just want to look at the first couple of days because Geared Gaming, I think it was, and BR Demons as well, actually had okay starts.
They did. Yeah.
And that was despite weird POIs. And if they had gotten that and then snowballed it into better POIs, like, how does that change the South American storyline?
Exactly. And so I wanted to bring it up because Geared Gaming actually won losers round 1. They actually won that entire like that little bracket. They won it and they were awesome. And unfortunately, both Geared and BR Demons go out in losers too, which sucks. But they were a team that were the region. Sorry. They were a region that was surprising people. And I just thought, now with this POI draft, they're going to get 2 more spots. And I think the BR Demons was especially like impressive the way they were fighting. I'd love to see how they can do moving forward if they're able to make it back. I just think this opens up a lot more pathways to, teams that may not have had the opportunity to get landed up and looted up without having to fight. Gives them a better chance, I think.
And it also like makes the early stages of groups that much more interesting because I found what I was looking for. The BR Demons first day, like day 1 of LAN, got 6th place, which like you let that snowball a little bit more. Like you get a really good placement on the first day. Now that means a lot more, whether you're from South America or not, for the rest of the tournament. Which makes the first couple days of LAN, and specifically the group stage, a lot more important, because the group stage right now, or as it was in split one playoffs at champs, is sort of in this space where, well, I mean, it's pretty reasonable to make winners round anyway, and if you don't, that's honestly kind of fine. Like you're just sort of sorting out who's gonna be where. But if it now impacts where you play from, then it matters so much more to start things off really well and get a good score in the group stage, because otherwise you're risking a poor performance in subsequent lobbies.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite changes is how much your placement in those losers and winners, and actually in group stages, because group stages affects your finals placement too. In the rules, it's not just like if you're top 10 winners, your group stage points are actually factored into it. It's interesting. Like I have to read back into how it works, but I wasn't expecting that. So just every day, like your placement matters. Like 20th in groups actually matters now for your final Sunday.
Not to mention too that like it's also made scrim quality amazing, like just so much better. And that was something I did not expect at all, because that was the one change that moved me from the one side of the fence to the other, because now scrims matter. And if you're trying to grow an esport like Apex Legends, the best thing you can do is make every single aspect of it matter a little bit, because now it makes it to where the teams literally have to practice from these other POIs because they don't know what position they're going to be drafting from. And then it leads into that weekend where they have their match days, and then their match days lead into the playoffs, and then their playoffs lead into final Sunday. So it all cultivates together to make like a big, massive change that at first I was very on the fence about. And now I'm just feeling really good. And I'm sure you guys on the desk feel the same.
Yeah. And again, for fans, right? Like if I really love watching, let's say C9 play, and I'm watching them figure out how to play from landslide, like they're going to be streaming those scrims and they're going to be figuring it out. They're going to be iterating through the process of, how do we construct a good game of Apex Legends? What do other POIs around us want to do? And I think you as a viewer just become a lot more educated. I think it raises, for those people who are watching the ALGS, I think it raises the skill floor of Apex Legends for them, because they literally understand the game more.
I think it's interesting when you see teams like Liquid after, though, where they'll pick a POI like Dome often, just because it's very similar to their previous macro too. So it's like I like how a lot of teams have like played around it.
It's crazy too, because Liquid winning games at Skyhook while they're playing from Dome. I know Jumbo always says like they were already used to it, but it's still so crazy to make that rotate. Like it's an insane rotate to make.
Even if they came from launch site, you would say like even if something was so confused, like to Skyhook win, like it's insane. Crazy. Like it is for sure. And they did it twice. Like they did like back to back that day or something, or they got like 30 points in 2 games, regardless of the fact like coming from Dome to Skyhook is very, very an amazing feat there.
So one of the biggest news stories circulating right now is that Timmy has left DSG, and it leaves a giant hole in my heart, because it was such a great storyline. It was so awesome to watch the dojo, which ended up becoming DSG. How did you take that news, and how did you see that story?
I don't think I didn't see it coming, but I didn't see it coming not because of their performances. Like the performances of both rosters make sense that they want to make a change. I didn't see it coming because Timmy has been like such a core part of the Disguise roster. I figured that if the roster were to break apart, it would have been like, Design when he wanted to go to or when he was trialing for TSM or something like that, or it would have been Enemy being picked up by somebody else. I didn't expect it to be Timmy that left. Because he is part of the cultural core of DSG. I'm worried for Designful and Enemy, because I think Timmy is a really calm voice, and I think that is like outside of what he can perform like mechanically as a player, what he brings in terms of knowledge of the game, completely outside of that. I think that's one of Timmy's best qualities. It's one of his most admirable qualities as a player and as a person. just how emotionally intelligent he can be. So I'm very envious of Not Moist. I think that they've got a very good team being built up now, and I think it's a character defining moment for Enemy and Designful, and that's the way that I'm going to be like talking about them in the coming days of Pro League. Is that this is like it's not a doomer moment for them, but it is a moment where Designful and Enemy can sort of like forge their own stories independent of Timmy, because they've both been really outspoken about what an incredible force he's been in their lives, in their pro careers. I mean, they've both tweeted about it, and so now, like, who do you become when that person who was holding you accountable in a lot of ways, who was helping you through difficult times, when they're gone, which of you steps in to fill those shoes? And how do you treat the person who comes in as a third? What role do they fill, both mechanically and like, do you try and get another Timmy, or do each of you become separate parts of that like back end burden that one player was carrying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like as you say, like he was such a like in so many different facets, like part of like the culture. I mean, like their announcement video was "Let's go where the cloud is," and they signed Timmy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny, like just because now it's like there's the two other guys there, and but then with that, like in the culture, like even the culture of like the way the team was, like they built their own story. From the LCQ of like everyone was doubting, like, and it was always like kind of like the doubt around Timmy, and
Mm-hmm.
then like being a content creator, and then they go on to land. Like he always seemed like as important to the story that Designful and Enemy are, and I love those two guys in what they've done over the last year here. It just seemed like it surrounded him, and now it went from like this big huge story where it seems like it's had like an end, and that's the way I initially looked at it. But now it's like realistically, if they fight their way back from, I think they're in like 18th or 19th overall, and they
Mm-hmm.
get to land and they get this third and they maybe finally win that last fight, it could actually go from like what it seems like a heartbreaking story right now to possibly the greatest story Apex has ever seen. And it's gonna take, like you said yourself, Design and Enemy to kind of pick themselves up and step up to the plate and really really carry on in something that was probably unexpected for them. And I know Designful is very emotional about too.
Yeah, I think that for me, what I'm sort of measuring the success of Disguised by at the moment is not whether they make international competition, but whether they stay together.
Mm-hmm.
Because the volatility of that roster has always been its defining feature. Like you were talking about, a lot of people doubted Timmy. I think they doubted Timmy not only mechanically, IGL wise, but I think they doubted whether Timmy could actually handle Designful and Enemy, who were both sort of loose cannons when they came in, and arguably still are in a lot of ways. I mean, Enemy's very young, and Designful is Designful. I say no more. And but very nice people. I have nothing against
Mm-hmm.
them, but they are emotional competitors, and so with Timmy gone, whether Disguised makes LAN or not, I think that I'll be very happy for this roster, and I'll consider it a success if in 6 months from now, when Split One starts up again, um, if they're still together, I think that's a win.
I think
100%.
that's such a great point, because really what you're trying to do is, at this point, the game is the game. We understand that, like, this is their career and this is what they're trying to do, but this kind of goes deeper. Like, this really did feel like a breakup, and with Timmy's emotional intelligence that you mentioned, it felt like whenever there was a designful moment where he was having a moment, Timmy was always kind of like that calming voice to be like, all right, let's bring it back in. And now that he's gone, and you saw Designful get emotional about like him leaving, and how badly he wanted this, and how badly this hurts, it really starts to it's like that mirror moment where you're staring at yourself in the mirror and being like, okay, what's going to happen now? And I think that's such a valuable point, that whether or not they make LAN is really a smaller point compared to if they're able to survive together and figure this thing out. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
such a great storyline to look at, because it goes beyond the game. It goes deeper into the lives of these players who have a lot of pressure on them at all times, and it's not easy sometimes to handle all of that pressure and like use it in positive ways. And I'm excited to see how they do it. And I think I was very impressed with Design last split, because in the
Mhm.
early portions of that split, he was having a ton of design moments. And then about midway to the end, it all kind of slowed down, and you could tell there was a lot of emotional maturity that was happening in that little run. And once again, they end up on a final Sunday, potentially one fight away from winning. So
Mhm.
I'm very interested to see this, and I'm very happy you brought that point up, because it goes beyond this. Like, this felt like a breakup. It's a deeper storyline than just Apex Legends, I think.
Yeah, not to get too cheesy about it, but I am going to do it anyway. I think in a lot of ways, Enemy and Designful, for very different reasons, with Timmy, got a lot of forgiveness, because when Enemy would put a little bit too much pressure on himself, maybe mess up, whatever that was, Designful wasn't the one who was going, "Oh, Enemy, it's okay." It was Timmy. And when Designful would get a little bit too mad and say things that most people would not tolerate, Timmy again was often very forgiving and would come back and see Design as a person, see Enemy as a person, and talk to them genuinely about things. And the real measure of this squad is, with all the emotional maturity that you're saying we saw through Split 2. I would agree. I think we saw that emotional maturity. Can they take that and then give it to somebody else when they get a new person who's in there? When that person makes a mistake, will they be able to forgive that person? When Designful says something that he regrets, or that I would say most people might regret, will Designful be able to forgive himself and come back and have an honest conversation with the team, make Enemy feel safe, etc.? I think it's like, can they sort of give back and continue the culture that Timmy started? Maybe I'm getting a little too cheesy. I'm going to stop.
No,
No, it's okay.
I think it's a good point. I think it's a good point, and I'm excited to see it. And I think, if, like I said, in Split 1, I saw it. I know it's there. I think it can
Mhm.
happen. As far as making it to LAN, I feel like the chances are very, very slim. I'm not going to say they're out of it, because we've seen what this team can do when they're on fire. Let's move
Mhm.
over to the other side of this. Moist, they're not doing much better. They're really not doing much better. And a lot of times when you see a big player move from one team to the other, it's because one team's doing really well and the other team's not. This is not that case. Moist is also doing bad, coming off of possibly, no, I think it is their worst day they've ever had in a pro league. What's going to happen here? Do you think that Timmy is enough to kind of help Moist go from 25th into the top 12?
Not so much. And that is not hate on Timmy, by the way. I want to be very clear about that. I think that Timmy's talented. I don't necessarily think that. I think he's kind of a lateral move for Moist on the whole. He brings a lot to any team, but I don't think that Moist were missing something that, like, say, Timmy could bring to them that I'm trying to think of another player. They were missing something that Timmy could bring to them that, say, Naughty could not. Timmy and Naughty are very different players, but you know what I'm saying? Like, that, or maybe you don't, but that Timmy, I don't think, is fulfilling a role on Moish that only Timmy could fill. He will, because there's only one. But I don't think that what Moist are lacking is, I guess, Timmy's biggest strength as a player, which is, I think, the soft skills that he brings. Moist have, and I have not completely, like, VOD reviewed, fully diagnosed exactly what's going on with Moist. Right now, their macro seems like kind of a dumpster fire. I don't think it's their 3v3s that are biting them nearly as much. And while I think the addition of Timmy could certainly help in some 3v3s and approaching things from a fresh perspective, most of what Moist need to do, no matter who their third is going to come from VOD review. Again, just in my opinion. And as a person who I do not think I have figured this team out. I don't think the team has figured itself out. But you remember earlier, Jumbo, when I was saying that, like, some teams just don't seem to know how to play in the, like, now a little bit more diverse meta that we have. And it is just that slight amount of diversity, but I think it's costing Moist a lot, because before you would have maybe one or two extra legends to deal with, but now with things that kind of starting to change the game, like Catalyst and Fuse being thrown into the mix, I think that changes up a lot of the way that you macro around those teams. And even micro in fight. Oh, there's some stupid term that Raven came up with a while ago.
Mezzo.
I shouldn't have even said it. I don't want anyone to remember it. But but I just don't think Moist honestly know what they're doing with this. And I no hate in my heart. No hate at all. Apex Legends is a hard game. They got to figure it out because that's what you do when you're playing a sport professionally, and they just don't understand the game right now.
Yeah, and it's weird
Yeah.
because a lot of times like a move gets made and it's typically like maybe an anchor player or like a fragger. They just fully switched IGLs. And I'm interested to see that happen, how that happens, because I trust Waltzy, friend of the program. We've had him on the show. He's a great guy. Like, how much was he already doing, I guess is my first question. And can it translate with a brand new player on the roster as well? Because it'd be one thing, like TSM hands IGL from Evan or Verhulst, whoever was doing it in one of their match days, and they give it over to Zap. It's like, all right, that team's already been there. They've been playing together. It's like you're giving away your IGL to a new person and you're bringing in a new player. That's just a lot. Like that's a lot to put on a plate.
I think an even better example would be like more so if you took like on an established team who's been together for a long time and just swapped IGLs. Like if you were to use like prior TSM and suddenly like Hal gives the role to Evan. Now it's just Evan becoming the IGL, but you still have a team that's been together. Swapping your IGLs and bringing a new player it seems very, very difficult. Like it's not like MT said, Waltzy, take the reins. Let's see how we can figure this out. It's MT stepping back, Waltzy taking the reins, and now Timmy coming in to not only be a new player but also co-IGL. And you know, Timmy has some very unorthodox philosophies when it comes to playing the game. That's why I think he worked so well with DSG because they were open to those ideas. It's gonna be interesting how he works in with a team with like Moist.
And I do think that's a strength of picking up Timmy specifically. Too. Like you know, when I was saying that, like I don't think that Timmy brings something that say like another basically good player wouldn't bring. I do think that this is where like his niche is arguably best, is in this interim period where you're shifting who's IGLing and how you're playing. I do think Timmy brings a jack of all trades quality and a flexibility to like adapt his own play style to suit the needs of the team that could be really beneficial. But I think that the concern here is that it could be. It's not that it certainly will be, and it does feel like a bit of a gamble for Moist. And maybe that's just what they need. You know, like it's not like it can get much worse. But it's far from a guaranteed improvement.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
Big uphill battles for both those teams right now.
Falcons. They're good, I guess.
I suppose.
they're
I'll give it to them. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody saw this coming.
Yeah.
No, nobody saw this.
I am surprised, and maybe I'll get flamed for it. And Phony, if you're listening, I mean, you know it will. You know I love you, Phony. I'm surprised at how close it is between Falcons and Space Station. I basically thought that international competition was still going to be basically anybody's game. There's still a lot to work on there, but that throughout weeks one, maybe until the last 2 weeks of the split, that basically NA would be miles behind Falcons. And I mean, for the most part, that's true. But then there's Space Station, and you're like, what's happening here? You know?
Yeah.
So I think very pleasantly surprised by what's going on there, because SSG are doing really well. And I mean, it is still a ways like between Falcons, SSG. I think Furia is next.
Yeah,
but I guess I don't. Yeah,
I guess the question really comes down to, is there a way? I mean, anything can happen in the ALGS, but is there a way that you see on a final Sunday with all of the teams in all of the regions that somebody can compete with this Falcons team? Like
100%.
You believe so?
Yeah.
Cool.
I wouldn't be surprised entirely if Falcons win this upcoming LAN. I will have a better guess for you when I see how everybody else is performing near the end of the split. But I would be surprised if Falcons won champs.
Ooh, you'd be surprised if they won champs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, I'm just about done here, but Jumba, do you have anything else for DiA before we round this bad boy out?
I mean, I was just gonna quickly comment on like, yeah, I mean, it'd be super interesting because if Falcons won this LAN and then champs, the big reason I think like they'd have a tough time is everyone's gonna be gunning for them. If you just took like TSM, Dark Zero, put them together, made Falcons, they win again. I don't see how everyone's just not constantly gunning for them. But other than that, no, I'm solid. Yeah, there's not much more from my end of things.
Okay,
Yeah,
well then go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't think that they're inherently that far ahead of the rest of the world. I tweeted it when Hal moved, but I was like,
yeah,
I mean, really, like Sykes to Hal, how big of an upgrade are we talking here? Like, DZ still did an incredible job at LAN. I remember casting with Gaskin. I got on for 3 games and Dark Zero won all 3 of them, and I was like, what kind of nightmare is this? Like, what?
And then they won the first game the next day. And
But like going from Sykes to Hal, I don't think is like that much of an upgrade. It's an upgrade maybe in some ways, but it's like I don't know. I just don't think it's that crazy of a shift, and people beat them at a split 1 playoffs, so I don't see a reason why the rest of the world won't do it again.
And they shattered split 1 records for like regular season 2.
Destroyed them.
I think like Aurora put up the most numbers, but in terms of NA records, like which everyone argues is like the toughest region. I don't even know why I put that in quotes. I think at this point we can say it's the toughest region, but they shattered records there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like I agree. Like I think a lot of people are in the same thing. Like obviously it's Imperial Hal. Sykes said it himself. Like I don't think there's anyone he would have. He's the only person in the world that he understands the replacement. But at the same time, like no one was expecting that Dark Zero team to really lose or be bad before. Now, and I've said it several times, it's just like I don't expect them to lose at all. Like not winning is a disappointment.
Yeah. So Enoch would be probably pissed at me if I didn't ask this question, because this is his question that he ends the show with every single time. But you're a second-time guest. Normally, he would ask the question of like what is the one thing you're in the top 1% of whatever you do. What is the one thing you need to tell people? Whenever we have people on a second time, Enoch asks, what have you learned the most from the last time you were on to now? So what is that biggest thing that you've learned personally in your own life that has helped you out from the last time you were on the show till now?
Okay. From the last time that I was on, I think the thing that I've learned the most about it that's benefited me the most is how to have a little bit more balance in my life. Because the last time we spoke, it was after my first year of Pro League, and I was like, that was basically a holy shit. We made it, boys. You know, like what do you cast after Pro League? And then we did champs, and then I took 3 months off because there's nothing there. And I mean, in that time, sure, there were like emails to send, tournaments to organize. I ended up putting together Challenger Circuit. But a big part of what I learned was how to separate myself from the work that I had been constantly doing up until that point. Because I did grind a lot of Challenger Circuit, and it was, you know, all in the hopes of becoming better and things like that. And I think that now I've gained a lot more confidence. I have a lot more ability to experiment because I'm separating my self-worth from how well I do on any given day. I don't finish a cast and go, oh, I said that player name wrong, or I miscalled a rotate. I am garbage. I am worth nothing. And by the same token, when I'm not working for a month, I'm thinking more about what I can do that inspires me, what makes me happy, and how I can contribute artistically and otherwise to Apex Legends and other sources in my life. Finding balance in terms of, you know, previously getting just a lot of validation, a lot of my spiritual fulfillment from one place, and shifting that into others areas of my life and finding the joy in that.
I love that. I love that so much. That's an awesome answer. Maybe one of the best answers we've ever had for a second timer. on.
I'll take that.
That's great. I
I'm
also
separating it from my self-worth, so
it doesn't count. It's off the board. I did forget one last question for me, and I always do this D-Knock anyway, so this is normally how the show goes. He asks his final question, and then I follow it up with like more final questions. Last time you were on the show, you mentioned something that really caught my ear: dramatic cues. We were talking about what was your favorite meta to ever cast, and you brought up dramatic cues, and you talked about the Gibby bubble is such an awesome dramatic cue. We don't have a Gibby bubble right now. I mean, I guess you could try it, but people would probably destroy whoever was trying to run that. The dramatic cues with the meta right now, I'm going to assume it's not the dropping of a lifeline care package. What is the dramatic cue that you look at and you're like, that's my favorite one to go off of right now? That's the most dramatic. That's my favorite one to call off of.
I am overjoyed that we have Catalyst back in the meta. Because that is one that I was missing for a really long time because of that. Because as soon as a Catalyst wall goes up, in my head, no matter what Tiff is talking about, no matter what I'm talking about, I start counting. And like as that timer gets lower and lower, you'll actually hear me, even if Tiff is talking in the background. I'll go, that wall's about to go down, because it's just like literally curtain drops and everything is if you haven't sorted out, you have basically a couple seconds on this side of the wall, figure it out. And then it's chaos, and how that sorts out is very exciting. So that is the dramatic cue that I'm really, really leaning on right now. Fuse gives us a few frag grenades, but Catalyst Wall is where it is at.
Yeah. Maybe one day we'll get a dramatic lifeline care package call, and here it comes. What's gonna be inside?
Could be.
Yeah,
I thought your answer would be the cat wall too, because like it just does. When the cat wall comes out, it's just like, oh, it's about to go down.
I tell you what, I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for the solo 1v3 gold knockdown lifeline self-res.
There we go.
That's
it. That might be it.
That's the only way
it's
that will
happen against Cloud9.
yeah.
My boys.
The only way that.
My God. Sorry, but have you guys been watching Naughty? I didn't watch him in today's scrims. I was watching Naughty in last week's scrims, and that guy's
he's insane.
Didn't have an insane pro league over the past couple days, but like that guy's team fight sense last week was off the charts. I am definitely watching him this year. Oh my Lord.
9's up.
Naughty's been locked since LAN. He's been locked since LAN. You watch his game, his comms are so good. They're so
incredible.
Incredible. Okay, well, DiA, thanks so much for hopping on. It's been a pleasure having you. And finally, for your first time as a solo on the show, thank you so much for hopping on. We'll get some more games in soon. Thank you so much for hopping on, man.
Of course, I'll try and learn something between now and then, so that I have an answer prepared.
We'll do our best.
Thanks, guys.
All right, ladies and gents, let's round out the show. The earlier section, obviously we already talked about why E couldn't be here, but we got him here for the back end because it was an important one. We're currently speaking to the number one pred
as of this moment, currently still.
Yeah, the number one pred. It was a great moment. Probably going to be some videos coming out pretty soon, but it was crazy because I was live on stream on the Apex the podcast. Follow us on Twitch. I was live, just lost another 5 straight bets, and then we go over to Enoch's stream because Connor gave me the heads up that he had just taken the number one. I go over there and he's having just a blast. There's just subs coming everywhere, gifteds coming everywhere. He's running around in circle. He's trying to read it all. He's getting shot from all angles as he's trying to read donations. It was a crazy moment, but E, you are the number one. How did it feel to get there?
It was definitely cool in that moment of like realizing that I got it. Cause like Effect had been like offline like all day and like he wasn't getting back on. He had just played Pro League. And so like it was cool because like I mean obviously it's like the work of like over a month now plus of just 12 to like 16-hour days, and then especially at the beginning I was doing like 20 hours just like working like towards like this goal of like hitting it and now like keeping it, which is I've already like even like as we're recording it right now, that boy Effect got like a juicer game and is now ahead. but like it is what it is, and
We
it's
don't
just
have-
gonna
we
be
can pretend that
it'll
didn't
be a
happen
back
yet.
it'll be a back and forth for like a little bit, but I definitely think towards like the end that I'll pull away with it, but it'll be a nice little back and forth.
Yeah, it
You
was
got
crazy
this.
too because I guess you were 12K down, and you just
Yeah, it
you
was
just,
like 12 or 13K, and just
Yeah, I remember last week when we were recording, you popped on. You're like, I just got number 2. I'm 12K behind Effect, but I got this.
and you did it,
exactly.
and you did it.
Yeah,
How's the sleep
Dude,
schedule feeling?
that was actually just nuts. Like that whole like 5 to 10 minutes after, literally it was just like gift. Like it was just crazy. And then like yeah, I mean in terms of like viewership and everything, like it's just like exponentially like gotten like better and better and better. And so like it's been like before starting this like like the number one grind, like I think I was averaging, I'd gotten like the lowest I had gotten to was like around like 180, and then like over the let me check, over the past like 30 days it's like up to like a 371, and like I like tripled like my Twitch hours watch time. I went in like March, I was like 46 and I had like 34,000 hours watch time, and then in May I was 21st and I had 113,000 hours watch time. And so it's just like when like seeing like those numbers like that along with like the numbers on screen and like in terms of like putting up the RP, like just like the overall growth of everything, I'm grateful, and I'm gonna keep on putting in the work because there's no reason to stop now. And I got the rest of this season. I mean, the rest of this split, next split, probably the split after that. We'll see. And I don't plan on slowing down anytime soon. And I'm just looking forward to just continue building everything that I got going on.
Not to mention that we also had our second largest ever watched pod on YouTube in the midst of all of this, which is just crazy. Like the Verhulst pod, definitely second place on our all-time list of views anyway. So you did that as well, on top of the fact
No, your tweet was I appreciated it because when I read it, I didn't even like comprehend in my head the fact that like it would be like be like a lot, you know? Like doing all of the different things.
It's crazy. It's like and people were trying to diminish the accomplishment. Somebody was like, doesn't a podcast only take 1 to 2 hours? It's like, bro, the prep time takes way longer than that. Trying to get you're the one who's getting the guests, and then the guest we were getting was Slayer, Verhulst, Snipe Down, all back to back to back. Like that's a crazy lineup of guests, especially in the midst of like a pro league split where they're all, you know, kind of doing things. I know Snipe Down's not playing right now, but he still has the show that he's doing. So he's got a lot of stuff going on. So it's like it's super awesome. It was great to see, and I can't wait to see what happens next. As far as the sleep schedule goes, how are you feeling?
I'm getting like 6 to 7 hours. That's what I'm shooting for. I typically am on I'll like do like a really long stream the like late night Saturday or / early morning Sunday morning until like all the way through Sunday. And then other than that, I'm like typically getting on around like 8 and then playing till like around like, depending on what I have going on and whether or not I'm making it to the gym. I've consistently made it to the gym at least twice while doing it. So which is something that I really wanted to maintain. But then, yeah, so I'm getting around like 6 hours to 7. I go to bed like around 12 to 1ish, and then get up around 8ish, something like that. It's been good. Like, cause like I wouldn't be able, like, I know that if I don't get at least like 6 to 7, I'm not gonna be like playing like the way I need to, or like in control of my emotional state as well as I'm gonna need to be. Because like if I'm consistently getting around 5 hours, my ability to become Mr. Poopy Pants becomes exceptionally higher than when I get good sleep.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be Mr. Poopy Pants.
You don't.
Especially right now.
You don't. Damn it, I lost my question.
Here, my favorite thing I wanted to throw out there was, while I was watching, was someone asked in chat to your mom, they're like, isn't it really late for you? And she's like, yeah, it's like 3 a.m., but I don't want to miss it. And I love that she was there like late at night, just watching, waiting to see you hit number 1 Fred.
Dude, it took like because like I was like 1 game away for probably like 2 hours. It was it was ridiculous how long it took. Like the last final bit of RP, it was just nuts. And I like the whole time I was like, it's a test, it's fun. It's cool.
Actually,
it's a test.
That's right. I saw her say it was like I saw it was early because I jumped in the stream as soon as Connor had mentioned it to us. And then like you didn't hit it for like another hour or so, or an hour and 10 minutes, and she had said
it was that was not the most fun of times. Like just literally just being like so close. Because like you can get the streak where like RP is like so easy, it just feels like you can't lose. Like it's impossible to not top 5, and then you can just have those streaks where it's just like, holy shit, everything that could possibly go wrong is going wrong, and it just sometimes feels like it's just not going to stop. But you're just like, it's just a test, it's fine. Because like you just got to keep on telling yourself, like you got to gaslight yourself into like knowing like, I know the RP is coming. I just got to not get twisted, and I got to not get upset about this like perceived bullshit that I'm experiencing, and I just got to keep focused on the goal, and then everything will fall into place. Because then when you end up eventually like getting that RP, it's just like, okay, I was freaking out and I was getting twisted over nothing, and so you can just skip the getting twisted over nothing and just stop getting twisted. And I've been getting better and better and better because I've been getting way more practice. I have gotten just an exceptionally large amount of practice of dealing with bullshit and not allowing it to like get me twisted. And so that has been a very good added on benefit of like the grind.
I was
like my mental like locked inness of like being detached from the bullshit is like peaked right now. I'm just gonna keep on cruising.
I was gonna say, as a father, I appreciated the moment where you're screaming at the top of your lungs. You're like, okay, we're gonna be quieter now because she's pregnant, and I gotta make sure that everything. Like you started trying to do it quieter, but you're still doing.
Because I was like, out of respect, she needs to get a rest.
Yeah, that was funny. That was great.
I appreciate the 5 gifted. Oh my god.
Yeah, dude. It was great. It was great overall. Okay. Well, I'm sure we know what Enoch's heart to heart is going to be, but let's quickly send it on down to the heart to heart and send you guys on the rest of your week. Let's get it. All right, here we are, ladies and gents. Heart to heart time. It is heart to heart time. Jumbo, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'll try to make it quick. I think it might be a repeat sentiment of last week. I'm going back to back 2 weeks. On the gratefulness.
Let's go.
Absolutely no shame in it, Jumbo.
Yes. Yes. Let's go.
I'll try to mix it up in the future, but I mean, it's never bad to be grateful. And the reason why is because, and maybe I'm throwing a date on when we're recording this, but I put a tweet out today that like June 10th is 2 years since I posted my first video, which is the TSM story. And like,
that's fire.
I remember putting out like a reminder on my phone about the 2 year or like June 10th to remind me, like, you know, this is the day you posted that first video. And before, you know, like I won't lie, I will say I've lived a pretty privileged life. I have a great set of friends, good family, good health, like, you know, not dealt with very much troubles. But in 2021, it was a year that was just like, you could probably go see the tweet if you want the full story, but just a lot of shit, breakups, losing close ones, lots of like health scares in the family and everything like that, where my mental was just like shot. And I kind of had like even like a little bit of an identity crisis. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life at that point, because I had my life set up, and I thought I had the person I was going to marry. I thought I had my career set, and within about like 2 or 3 weeks, all that just disappeared. So then after, it took me like a year to get back up on my feet. But then the big thing I always wanted to do was really get into content creation, YouTube. Been trying for like 10 plus years. And I put 3 months into that TSM video, and I could not believe, like after 2 weeks, it had 2,000 views. And then in 1 weekend, it blew up, had 120,000 views. And I haven't looked back since. I haven't looked back since.
That's
so yeah,
fire.
so that's the
That
gratefulness
is
there.
unbelievably like fire story, and
Yeah.
that is definitely worthy of the of some gratefulness. No
That's worthy
doubt.
of gratefulness. That's
Yeah,
worthy of
yeah.
gratefulness.
Exactly. So
I love
so,
it.
yeah.
I love it. This week, I don't know what I'm gonna do for my heart to heart. I guess I'm just gonna update everybody on our zombies, our quest
throw?
as zombies.
The throw.
I got to talk about the throw real quick. Enoch might be too busy right now for me to show him the throw, but I just got to talk about this throw. Okay, so me and Jayhawk have become close, I would say. But in a way, the way that me and Jayhawk are close, it's not like we're like, "Hey, bud, how you doing?" It's like we just roast each other all the time, and we're always arguing. But I feel like every argument brings us closer. we had a transit Easter egg run, which, by the way, transit is the fucking worst map of all time. I thought it had potential. I was like,
That's the bus one with
Transit-
the bank, right?
that's the bus one.
I remember that one.
Transit, it was a product of being on too early of a generation of consoles, which is why they made it as shitty as they made it. So I was like, oh, it's got potential. Like, if they were ever to remake the map, it would be incredible. It'd be awesome. If on next gen, it'd be great. I never want to see it ever again.
I agree.
This was the only Easter egg we've ever tried that we failed. We failed it 5 times in one night. I got off the game at like 4 a.m. I wanted to die because I was just like, how did I just play for this long and not get it done, not get the job done? I feel like that's what Enoch feels after a bad RP day. And now I finally understand, because it's like a feeling. You're just like, I just turned it off and I accomplished fucking nothing. I did nothing right now. I did nothing at all. And I felt so shitty. I couldn't even go to bed. I like just sat there and I just like was on my phone. I was like, I can't even sleep right now. Like, I'm so pissed. And so the next day we get in there and we try it, and we're on our first run. And really, truly, the MVP was Connor. Connor saved the game. But in the transit Easter egg, you got to stand underneath this like 4-post like electricity thing, and you have to wait for the electricity guy to come in. Yeah, you got to wait for him to walk inside, and then there's a special grenade that you have to get from the box. I was the only one who got the grenade, and you got to throw it, and the other 2 guys have to put down their little turbines. So Kyle and Connor put down their turbines. Jayhawk is across from me, and I'm trying to shoot a zombie with the ray gun. I keep missing my shot. I can't hit the zombie with the ray gun. So Jayhawk goes down. And then the electricity guy shoots Kyle. Kyle goes down. Connor's behind me. He's like watching my back. And I see the electricity guy, and I see 2 zombies coming towards me. I think to myself, okay, we got 2 guys down. All I got to do is hit this throw, and we should be okay. And then I'm totally fine. I don't got to worry about the zombies. Well, that was all good and dandy until the electricity guy shot me with a bolt of lightning. I was 1 tap, and then a zombie is lifting up his fucking fist, ready to strike me down. I hit the craziest Aaron Rodgers back shoulder, back foot throw, hit the electricity zombie right on the edge of the barrier. He goes in, he goes up. We get the Easter egg. Connor revives all of us. We survive. We get it. But Jayhawk won't give me a shred of credit for the throw. He refuses. He keeps saying it's a fine throw. He won't say it was a great throw, a Easter egg saving throw. He won't do it. So I guess my heart to heart this week is, just finding better friends, I guess. Making sure finding friends, finding friends who respect your great throws and just understand how beautiful of a throw it was. I'll have to put the throw up. I have the VOD. VOD.
Can we see the VOD right now?
I can try to pull it
up. Can
up.
you pull it up? I feel like we need to see it.
So Connor says that every time we do this, it doesn't end up working. But I can have him plug it in afterwards. So right now, here's what we'll do. This is the throw. We're going to first do it in full speed, and then we'll do it in slow motion. So here is
I think that's
the
only
throw.
Respectable. I feel like that's the only way to do it.
Put him down, boys.
Put him down.
Oh,
Down.
shoot. Revive me.
I got him.
No, I'm dead. Literally just 1 shot. No, I threw my thing before I went down.
You got him.
I got him.
Okay, we're post Enoch seeing the throw. E, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
I think that Jayhawk is simply the president of the White Hater Club. One after watching it, bro, that man said like dies for the freezies, absolutely just falls over, and then has the audacity to say that while you have a zombie in your face, like you don't even see the electricity guy on your screen for that throw.
I had to trust my instinct.
It was just off of intuition and just a well-seasoned zombies player. And to keep the game alive and then to just be hating on the play. Like, even if my guy, like my teammate, like clutches up like the easiest thing, I would be like, dude, insane clutch. Like, you're great. Like,
won't give me
great
any
play.
credit.
You're the best. Like, to actually see like a good play and to just still get shit talked. Yeah, he's just hating. He
said to his credit,
hater.
Yeah.
To his credit, he said it is a fine throw, which I guess you could count as some credit, but I feel like that's not just a fine throw. Once again, Connor is the MVP because he gets us all back up. Like Connor rezzed us all because there was still one more step after that point that we had to finish. So Connor getting us back up and not dying, gigantic, especially with the sniper rifle, which I didn't even see when I was watching it the first time. Dude's got a sniper rifle and he still
Bold
gets us
play.
back up.
That's a bold play.
That's bold.
The real reason Connor's the biggest MVP here is because I was supposed to be part of this Easter egg, but being on East Coast, Wyatt and Kyle, or like at least Wyatt, neither of them were available till like 1:30 my time. And the last two Easter eggs we did took us through 2.5 hours. I'm like, guys, I'm not staying here till 5 a.m. It's just not happening, right?
Yeah.
Which they did stay on till 6 a.m., 6:30 my time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, that's not happening. And but like, so I'm like, let me go watch Connor's stream in the meantime. And as I'm watching Connor's stream, they got this guy on zombie duty for 40. I fell asleep because he's just got the single zombie running in circles.
Running him in
as they're
circles.
like, it's the greatest stream ever. 3 of them offside of the map doing everything as Connor runs in circles for 45 minutes.
Dude.
Then this guy,
That's a tough job.
you think he would zone out, you know, get a little bit mentally tired? No, this guy is locked in the whole time. Still pulls out the clutch at the end.
Not to
Don't
mention
hold up the
he's
clutch, yeah.
on your same time zone. So
Yeah, no,
like,
he's like a 1 hour
he's
behind
on
me, but
your
it's tired. It's low. It's
yeah,
late for him.
like,
It's late for him.
dude, it's late. He's been running a zombie around in a circle for 40 minutes. And then finally he steps up to the plate cold. Like he's just been running in a circle for 40 minutes. And then we're like, hey, figure out how to finish this Easter egg now. That's like stepping up in the final moments. Like you like that would be like somebody in the stands, like you're watching a baseball game, their closer goes out with the injury, they pick some random guy out of the stands, they're like, hey, come in here and just fucking throw. Like that's what Connor was doing because he was walking in circles for just 40 straight minutes, just like doing nothing. Yeah, so Connor's the MVP, but I need a little bit more from Jay to be like, it was a fine throw. I need to hear, listen, man, that was a great throw. If he says that was a great throw, I'm good. That's all I need. I just need to hear. I've actually thought about making a documentary on this throw. I've got the camera set up here. I might make a documentary on this throw because it was a fantastic moment.
We'll get it for the full video. We'll get the I was thinking of skipping almost like everything about transit, but now the throw's there. Like we got to document the throw.
The throw is big. And I was joking about finding better friends. Jayhawk is a great friend. He's helped me out in so many ways. But as far as just giving me credit on this throw, it's just sticking in my craw. Like I need to hear like, hey dude, great throw. I don't need him to tell me that I was the MVP because obviously that was Connor. We've already set that precedent. He was the MVP. Jayhawk's big defense against me is I was missing a lot of ray gun shots, which is very fair. I missed.
I mean,
I was gonna say.
I missed.
I mean, with all due, I mean, you definitely missed your ray gun shots, but I mean, that boy Jayhawk died for free.
There definitely is a side of Jayhawk's story, which I could tell right now. He described it very thoroughly to me, but I thought it would have been funny if we just left his side out, just not put the context.
Yeah, let's just not put it in there. Let's just leave it.
Because like. He's got some justifiable reasons for why he went down.
I guess the real heart to heart in all of this is, when you find great friends, you can find great moments such as these where we are probably going to argue about the throw for a very long time. The significance of the throw will be tossed back and forth between one another for quite a while because nobody is really truly sure how great the throw really was. And it's up to your guys' interpretation too. In the comments, I'd like to see what you guys thought about the throw. If Jayhawk was right, if I was right, doesn't really matter. But yeah, so that's my heart to heart this week. Our zombies run continues. We actually finished Transit and Die Rise. So hopefully this weekend we're going to be hitting Mob of the Dead, potentially Buried, maybe even Origins. But Origins is, I think Origins could be hard as shit. I think we need a whole weekend dedicated to Origins.
We're going to need practice on Origins.
That's going to need some practice. So yeah, that is my heart to heart this week. Shout out Jayhawk. He has helped me out a ton. I just need some credit on this throw. That's my heart to heart. I think I know what your heart to heart is, but I think we just got to hit it anyway.
Yeah, I was almost about to go first because you're wrong, but then Jumbo just it flowed so well, and then it was beautiful. But yeah, so I'm mixing it up. Because like, yeah, I mean, Grateful is definitely like 100% here and there, but like my biggest thing, especially over the past few days, is just any like negative experience. It's just a test. Just a test. The amount of just absolute just tragedies that like came my way over the past like week or so, especially like as I get closer and closer and closer, it seems like the bullshit got greater and greater and greater. It's just like, it's a test. It is what it is. Like, it's just not worth getting like mentally twisted about. And it's funny because like I do a really good job of it most of the time, but like I'll have my moments where I get like a little pissed off, and then I have my teammates and they'll say it in like a super smart assy way because I always be saying it. I'm just like, it's just a test. It's fine. You're good. And so like, and it's just like, I know it's right, but it's like, I'm just like in those moments, I'm just like, I'm so pissed. I'm just like, oh, it's a test. It is. And then I'm just re-locked in again. And so that's like my big takeaway.
That's
Good.
great.
I love
That's
that.
great. The one week I would have bet. This is how bad I am at
how
betting.
bad you are at betting.
I would have bet everything that this week would have been Grateful, and instead it switched up to it's a test. That's how bad I am. That's how bad I am at this.
Oh my god,
that's crazy.
You're
like whoever like the Jim Cramer. I'm pretty sure he's like the inverse. Like you just call whatever like the opposite of whatever he does, yeah. And like you'll just be rich. Like you're that guy.
Yep. That's where we're at. That's where we're at.
But you know, I was gonna say like it's also like I like especially because like I'm like was number one yesterday, was also number one today for a little bit, lost it, got it back, have now lost it again. And now Effect, this dude is actually just different. He's like he's been on for 3 hours, he's put up like 2 KRP.
That's wild.
He's just, I mean, he just be gaining. But he's got scrims tomorrow, I think. And so I got a long day. And like the way that I'm looking at it is like this guy's been number one the whole time. And it's taken me like this long to like catch up to him. And now that I've caught up to him like that, there's like a whole large gap. So like I'm going to be fine if we go back and forth for a while. Cause I know like eventually, like the more scrims he has and the more pro league he has and the more of just like absolute grind that I'm going to be putting in, like there's still like 2 weeks left. I got plenty of time to be able to like pull away. Mm-hmm. And so like, I just need like, even though it can be frustrating of like, oh, I'm like, I might have to deal with like not being able to see the number one for a little bit or like seeing it come and go for a little bit. Like it's just nothing to get twisted about and like to just enjoy the whole time.
Going up against Effect,
I'm gonna be rocking.
Going up against Effect for number one is probably the toughest. The only other like tough opponent I feel that would be up there would have been Watson. Those two guys are like the guys that are just when it comes to the number one pred grind.
If they want, those are guys who if like they want it, they get it type shit.
Yeah,
and it's like I would put Keon up there as well.
True.
Because like if that man wants it, he gets it. There's like there's a few of them out there, and so it's gonna be a fun time. I mean, I have like the utmost respect. The fact that he's doing all of this and scrimming and TDMing and like he's different.
Different. Sure. He is different. Well, ladies and gents, that should just about do it this week for this episode of the Apex the podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in as always, and thank you guys for watching on the YouTube if you are watching over there. It was another great week. Hopefully we got some more coming up here with all of the Pro League action, lots of news, lots of stuff going on. We are just 3 match days in. We've still got a lot of time left in split number 2. And thank you guys for sticking with us. As always, don't forget to join the Discord and follow us on all social medias. We will catch you guys next week on another edition of the Apex the Podcast. See ya.